Commissioners, deletions, additions to the agenda. We had a request to remove public speaking, item 10B1, so we will remove that from the agenda. I believe Mr. Rigby has indicated he wants to come back next week, so we'll welcome him then. Any other changes, deletions, additions to the agenda?
Mr. Chair, move approval as amended.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Moss. All in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. This next the presentation we have coming up here, I'm very excited to hear more about this. I've been kind of highlighting this on our venue program the last couple of meetings, and so we've got it coming up. So with that, without further ado, I'd like to have Michael Zito come forward, and he's going to kick off the presentation on Operation Green Light. Good morning, Michael.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, Commissioners. As you know, the county has a long history in serving our veterans. Operation Green Light is an opportunity to identify and celebrate veteran service officers in particular. These are the employees of various counties and parishes and boroughs throughout the nation. And the National Association of Counties has endeavored to celebrate the hard work that they do for our veterans. And with that, we'll be lighting some county buildings. But I thought it was a fantastic opportunity today to introduce you to our Chief Veteran Service Officer and have her tell you a little bit about what the county's division does for veterans. As you know from your hard work and interaction with the Veterans Council and other veterans groups, they serve in various transportation modes and medical assistance. But our Veteran Services Officers do a very unique mission. And with that, I'll introduce Melissa Arndt, our Veteran Services Manager, and she's in charge of herself and two other VSOs that cover both Vero and Sebastian offices.
Yes, sir.
And she's going to share with you some of the innovations we've endeavored over the last 2 years to increase our level of service. And I'm just so proud of the work that she's doing. So good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I won't take up a lot of your time. We just haven't talked to you guys in a while about the things that Veteran Services has done to move forward. So I put together a short presentation for you, just some stats. And then if you have any questions, please. So this is just a snapshot overall. We fall into general services, and then it's myself in the Vero Beach office, and I actually have a part-time VSO in that office with me, and additionally a full-time VSO who works out of the Sebastian office. This is just a brief mission statement, and additionally with the mission statement it gives the addresses of the location, and then again part-time and full-time who works in what office. This is some of the qualifications that you have to actually be a veteran service officer. So the biggest thing about a veteran service officer is you have to be able to pass a federal background check. You have to be able to get a secret clearance to get access to the medical records and the financial records and everything else that comes with preparing a claim for a veteran or for supporting a family member. Here's a couple of our stats for the last couple of years. As you can see that we continue to grow. From what I understand, we actually have people from other counties that come to see us due to word of mouth, which is, I guess, a blessing and a curse, I don't know. But we've had people come from Okeechobee and from Miami, actually. I had 2 people come up from Miami to see me, so again, you know. This is what the VA has spent in our county in the last couple of FYs. So overall, it looks like for 2020, they spent over $130 million. So that goes with health care, that goes with insurance, you know, it goes with voc rehab, compensation, and pension. And those are the things that our office, you know, that the county provides. Those are the things that we help with. And then last year, it looks like $139 million. I haven't got 2022's numbers yet, but as soon as I get them, I'll share them. Over the last couple of years, as you guys know, I took over from Joel Herman, so I have made changes to the office in the last couple of years. Some of the biggest things that I made is we went ahead and we're getting rid of the paper system. There were just 50 file cabinets full of stuff, and so we're slowly making our way through that so we can digitize everything. So it'll be a lot easier for VSOs to get information versus going through and digging through a file cabinet. Some of the other big things is we created a veteran service officer guide. That Veteran Service Officer Guide is used throughout the state of Florida, so that's pretty cool. Some other things that we do is we have partnered with a lot of the organizations in the county. So we provide volunteer opportunities inside of our office. Our front desk is manned by volunteers. Additionally, we have provided opportunities for the high school, children that were applying for scholarships that needed to volunteer, things like that. So we provided those opportunities inside our office. They've came in and helped answer the phone or something like that so that they can get that time and interact with the veterans that come into our offices. We also go out and brief different places, and we use Senior Resource Association as a fill-in for our volunteers as well. And that's pretty much it.
All right.
Well, it sounds like you're doing quite a bit there, Melissa. Thank you very much for everything you're doing.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Melissa. So if there are no operational questions, or you can save them for later, we'll continue to track these statistics and provide them to you in a quarterly basis, along with our general statistics we provide for libraries and other divisions of general services. So as your representative and voting delegate of the National Association of Counties, they've asked me to read this statement into the record, if you'll permit me, and it's related to Operation Greenlight. America's counties have a long and proud history of serving our nation's veterans, a legacy that continues to this day as we work with our federal, state, and local partners to ensure that the former service members in our communities have access to the resources they need to thrive. This coming Veterans Day, the National Association of Counties and the National Association of County Veteran Service Officers invite the nation's 3,069 counties, parishes, and boroughs to join Operation Greenlight and show support for veterans by lighting our buildings green from November 7th to the 13th. By shining a green light, county governments and our residents will let veterans know that they are seen, appreciated, and supported. So with the cooperation of our Public Works Department, thank you, Rich, we'll be lighting the campus here, buildings A and B green. We're also going to light the IG Center and the Fairgrounds building, which you can see from 58th Avenue, which is a very busy thoroughfare. So with that, we're encouraging our residents to join us in this endeavor, and hopefully it grows next year and beyond.
Very good, Mike. Glad to hear those locations, and yeah, I think the fairgrounds will have a good visibility there, so that'll be pretty neat to see.
And Melissa, I want to thank you again for all of your innovations and hard work, and we look forward to the coming year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you both. Looking forward to it. Commissioners, there's a whole slew of minutes up for approval. I'd be glad to accept a motion to accept all of them in one motion. We have the,
Sir.
okay. We have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Adams, and for the record, this is the budget workshop of July 13, regular meeting of August 16, regular meeting of September 13, preliminary budget hearing of September 14, and final budget hearing of September 21. All those in favor of the motion signify with aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you all. Informational items, Commissioners, my favorite thing is the Indian River County venue event calendar, and a couple highlights here. You know, after the disc golf tournament, the Board of County Commissioners office has a newfound interest in sports activities. So I will point out that the rec department is opening up a new adult co-ed kickball league, which I think that would be right up our alley with this, you know, renewed enthusiasm for sports going on here. The IG Center has a whole slew of lists going, but a big one is the CCA dinner coming up on November 17th. That's always a big turnout. The fairgrounds, they also have a big list of things, a health fair going on, a gun show, arts and craft expo, so lots of things going on at the fairgrounds. And I don't know if anybody made it out to the fairgrounds for the Oktoberfest this past weekend, but we went out there Saturday, and it was just a huge crowd. It was a beautiful day, a lot of people out there having a good time, and apparently some German beer got drank. I don't know, that's what I hear, so.
Yeah.
And then we've got a special event going on at the county shooting range. Commissioner Adams, would you like to highlight that?
I would love to. For all those hunters out in our community, we will be having the FWC Hunter Safety Course this Saturday from 9 a.m. to 3. It is a free course, and it is taught by my favorite hunter safety instructor, very knowledgeable, Mr. Jay Davey. So come on out.
And you say that with unbiased.
Totally unbiased.
Totally unbiased, yeah. And then also on information that the county was awarded a community champion award from the Senior Collaborative for the working to ensure the safety and protection of seniors in the county. So congrats to everybody that is involved with that. Commissioners, anybody else want to highlight anything on information?
If I would, you see that we had a resignation from Dave Barney on the Beach and Shore Preservation Committee. I would tell you that Dave Barney served on that committee for almost over 20 years, and he did a fantastic job. He has accepted a position as one of the commissioners for the Sebastian Inlet Tax District, and I think he'll do a great job up there, but he is truly one of the board members that added something to the mix. So he did a great job.
Very good. Thank you for highlighting that. Nothing else? We'll go ahead and move on to consent agenda. Commissioners, does anybody wish to pull an item for additional discussion? Commissioner Adams?
8H.
Okay. Dang it. Stole my thunder. Anybody else wish to pull anything? I'd like to pull item 8M, as in Mary. And is there anyone from the audience that wishes to have a consent agenda item pulled for additional discussion? Okay, seeing none.
Mr. Chair, move approval as amended.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Vice Chair Ehrman. All in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Commissioner Adams, we'll go ahead with you in item 8H, please.
Sure. 8H is the Oyster Bar Marsh Conservation Area, final completion. I had the opportunity to go out there with Beth yesterday and do a little tour. It is a beautiful park. It's just a couple of lookouts. I think it's going to be a really great amenity for the community, but I did forget to ask while I was there, and this is why I pulled it. When is it going to be open to the public?
Good morning, Commissioners. Wendy Swindell, Conservation Lands Manager. We've talked to, as you know, this is a collaborative effort between Florida Communities Trust, the Indian River Land Trust, and the county. We're talking with the Land Trust about an opening date. We have some final tweaks to make as far as some signage, but we're open to any ideas that the commissioners certainly have. So love your feedback.
I would advocate for sooner rather than later. I think it's it's just really, it's nice that we saw a lot of birds yesterday, the ibises, and there was some, what are those, the birds that dive down, and the kingfish.
kingfishers.
Yeah, that was just really cool.
Both the Kingfisher, wow, okay.
So I would say, even if we need to do a soft opening maybe, and then a grand opening later, but I would defer to the rest of my commissioners.
Certainly, we'll collaborate with the Land Trust. They are our project partner in this effort. For those of you that don't know in the public, Oyster Bar is just north of the county line. It's about a 140-acre conservation area, an impoundment area. We've developed some really neat amenities out there. We have a mangrove boardwalk overlook and a regular lagoon overlook, as well as a butterfly trail. We've restored a lot of habitat out there and really excited to get it open.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Bring comfortable shoes. It's a
Oh,
long
and
walk.
we did want to mention that we did get a generous grant from Fine for the boardwalks in the parking lot, so we're very grateful and appreciative of that effort as well.
Well, and I think one thing about the boardwalks and the docks that was really cool that Beth pointed out to me is it's the see-through material. So the seagrass underneath isn't impacted by those boardwalks. That sun gets through, and that was due to part of that find.
The Fine grant was part of that. They're always a great project partner. We've actually done a really neat video tour of the site that Fine helped fund a lot of the educational stuff out there. So that there'll be a QR code on the signage as you come in, and you'll be able to actually take a virtual tour before you walk. It's a really neat project, and we'll be back soon with some other openings.
I look forward to it, and I would be happy to move approval of this.
We have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Flesher, and I'd just like to add that with the upcoming November 8th referendum on the bond issue to purchase more environmentally sensitive lands. I think it's great that we have a project now that we can say, yeah, this is what we want to do. And so people can really get their hands around when they go to vote for those bonds, that we can really show them, this is what we're talking about, and all the wildlife and everything going on, that, I think that's key to really making sure that referendum is successful, so.
Yes, like I mentioned, we look forward to soon coming back. We're opening Jones's Pier soon and Craigle, and then early next year, actually Hallstrom will be open as well.
good.
So we are
That's
really
awesome.
busy and excited to get all these areas open for the public.
Awesome, great job. So we do have a motion on the floor. Is there any discussion from the public? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Beth and Wendy, thank you all very much. Item 8M is the acceptance of a utility easement for a commercial development up within the boundaries of Sebastian. My understanding is that the city has asked us to expedite this so that we are moving it forward, even though that we may have to come back with a little bit more clearer item of the easement needed. But right now, the city has asked us to move this along, and so we're moving it forward so the city can proceed with their plans. Is that correct?
That is correct. We had, as the chair stated, we weren't sure these were the easements we needed. We asked that maybe one solution to it may be to remove the easements and simply deal with the easement issue as the item goes through the UCP process. City staff came back and said, no, they really want to get this on there. They're willing to work with us in the future. I just thought it was important to work with staff at the city of Sebastian. Thought it was a compromise we could all live with, so was happy to keep the item moving forward and not serve as any sort of block.
Yeah, I'm glad we're doing this and just don't want to hold them up on anything, and work with the city and get all this done. So Commissioners, I'm good with this item. I can't make a motion. All right, I'll second it. We have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by myself. Mr. Vice Mayor, did you have anything you want to add to this? Or are you good? Come on up, say hello.
No, sir, we appreciate what you guys have done. Our staff has worked with your staff, and we really need to get that project moving. It's been held up for a while, so this would be great for us, and we will actually honor our word, so there's no concern
Yeah,
there.
we're glad to help out.
Thank you.
Okay. So, no further discussion. All in favor of the motion signify with aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Moving on to public hearings. First is a consideration of a request by David L. Cox, Ph.D., to amend the land development regulations, piers, docks, and boat slips by revising the size restrictions on unwalled boat shelters to be consistent with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. And we'll go ahead and have Mr. Phil Mattson, our Community Development Director, kick this off. Good morning, Phil.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Commission. Phil Mattson, Community Development Director, and I'm going to introduce, for those of you not in the know, one of our jack of all trades in the department, Stephen Hitt. Stephen's our environmental planner. He's our sole environmental planner. He's in charge of all the dock permitting in the county. He's in charge of coastal construction setback lines and evaluation for construction by the dunes. He works with the Parks Department intimately. He works with our Code Enforcement Board and does the environmental issues there. He's also our arborist, our tree survey, and landscaping guy. So with that great buildup, he's here to introduce I think, a very important item that's going to really check a lot of our boxes from a visioning standpoint. You know, it's going to be both an economic development and an environmental project. And it was introduced by one of our more long-standing and one of our more renowned local environmentalists, Dr. David Cox. It's a dock permit, so I'm sorry, I can't resist. We'll call it Cox Docks. With that, okay. Stephen?
Morning, Commissioners. For the record, Stephen Hitt, Principal Environmental Planner. Okay, here we go. So this is a request by Dr. David Cox to amend Land Development Regulation, Section 932.07, regarding unwalled boat shelters. Just a little background information. Really, it was in 1991 that the county first established an unwalled shelter ordinance. We established a 400 square foot or less cap on unwalled boat shelters, and that particular land development regulation amendment was in an attempt to be more consistent with DEP requirements and also Army Corps requirements at the time. Prior to that, there was no ordinance allowing, it was really silent on unwalled shelters. In 2019, so not too distant past, we received a land development regulation amendment by Mr. Garrett Goudreau, who was seeking to amend this code to allow a larger unwalled shelter. He was seeking to combine 2 lift structures to cover 2 boats, and based on the 400 square foot limit, that was not possible. And so, again, there was some discrepancies between the state and federal requirements at the time and the county regulations, and there was an attempt to bring them closer in line with one another. Those specific state requirements pertain to single-family dock structures, so this would not include commercial docking. And realistically, it has a few provisions, namely that there's a 1-foot overhang, so the unwalled shelter size would be tied to the size of the boat. There's also a Florida Administrative Code section dealing, again, with single-family docks, and it extends a cap of 2,000 square feet. So in May of 2019, the P&Z voted 4-1 to recommend the adoption of that amendment, which increased the size. And in so doing, there was an addendum to their approval that we seek to look for ways to prevent an abuse of size for unreasonably large structures. And this was primarily concerned with marginal docks, which are docks that are typically directly adjacent to a seawall or really parallel to the shoreline where there's not deep water. So the amendment increased the size from 400 square feet to 1,000 square feet, but it directly tied the size of the shelter to the size of the dock structure, and limited it to 50% of the total over water. And then also added the provision about a 1-foot overhang over the vessel that was to be moored at that boat lift. So the board took a vote 3-2, some of you may remember, in 2019, and basically that adopted these amendments. They became somewhat more consistent with the state requirements, and at the time believed that it would prevent this out-of-scale abuse by unwalled shelters along the coastline. And the contention after the vote was that they obviously weren't 100% in line with state requirements based on those statutes I just showed you. There were still local limits, and that's what we're seeking today to look at. So some of the unintended consequences of the 2019 amendment were that because the unwalled shelter was tied to the size of the dock, in order to obtain a larger unwalled shelter or even to cover more than one vessel, you would have to essentially build that 2,000 square feet of dockage so that you can get that 1,000 square feet of unwalled shelter. So inadvertently, it's incentivizing creating larger docks than a homeowner may want, simply to cover their investments. And again, this primarily is an issue with docks that are in open water areas. So not against marginal dock areas where they're just canal restrictions or extension from shoreline restrictions that wouldn't come into play. And so this is just a reminder that the 2,000 square foot limit is still in place for the state, and there is no direct tying of the shelter to the dock size. It's to the boat size. And another unintended consequence was that when we added the 1-foot overhang criteria to the already smaller marginal docks, we actually reduced the size of a vessel that could be moored there, which was not something that staff was intending to do or the applicant at the time. It was kind of an afterthought, if you will, but actually reduced the size of a vessel because, again, it has to be designed with a 1-foot overhang, and that's the limit as well. And so, let's see. Yeah, we inadvertently added additional regulation to the lower end of the spectrum where we were not trying to do so. And so today, the proposed LDR amendment essentially strips the size limitations, brings it more or less mirroring the state's requirements, where the criteria is simply that it has that 1 foot overhang from the vessel and the lift that the vessel would be sitting on. And so there's no 400 or 1,000 square foot conditional requirement anymore, which has presented some confusing language that has been difficult both by staff and applicants to interpret. And so in September of this year, we took this item to the board. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of County Commissioners to adopt the proposed LDR amendments. I did want to highlight some of the other questions that were raised at the P&Z regarding, what safeguards we have currently in place that will not change with this amendment. So there are still, aquatic resources in the lagoon that we want to protect. There's no mooring areas that are allowed over those resources. That will not change with this ordinance. You still have those limitations in place, and we all know how sensitive that issue is in the lagoon. Also, there's a 20-foot height limitation above the mean high water line, so that will not change as well, and that's really going to limit some of the larger vessels from obtaining covers over their boats, simply because they wouldn't be able to meet this criteria if they have like a tall fly bridge or something like that. We also have side setback requirements from the riparian lines that extend from the sides of each property. That will not change. And in most districts, that's at least 10 feet. In some cases, it will be 15 feet, like in an RS3 zoning district, for example. And this is actually less of a requirement than the state requires. The state requires 25 feet unless you obtain a waiver from your neighbors. And then also the extension of docks will not increase. So it's still limited to 25% of the waterway width. Again, that's gonna protect canal waterways. You still have to have navigability, and so that won't change as well. And so we believe that with the proposed amendment, we will still, be able to regulate the size and be more consistent with jurisdictional agency requirements. We'll still be able to reasonably enhance riparian rights. I'll just skip ahead, and then result in minimal impacts to the environment because of the other safeguards that are already in place as well. So essentially today, before the board, you have a few options at your disposal for looking at this LDR amendment. You can either adopt it as proposed, amend it with modifications, and just as an example, if there was a desire to include a 2,000 square foot limitation as the state and federal requirements do, we could do something like that if that's more amenable, or deny the proposed amendment. And so we come to staff's recommendation, which is to recommend adoption of the proposed ordinance revising the unwalled boat shelter restrictions.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioners, any questions of Stephen?
I have a question.
Commissioner Moss.
Thank you. Looking at 2019 with planning and zoning being a 4-to-1 vote and I guess county commission being 3-to-2 vote, I did read the minutes that were supplied from the planning and zoning commission meeting. It didn't say why it was 4-to-1. It just said there was an opposing vote. So in the interest of hearing the other side of the story, can you explain that, if you will, the voting?
Sure. Yeah, I think some of the main discussion items were related to the size, primarily again with marginal docks that are closer to shoreline. And I believe during the discussion there were a lot of communities that were discussed, several of which were not actually in the unincorporated area, which I think led to some of the confusion and some of the discussion itself, because the perception was that this was going to affect a lot of communities where there were these marginal docks, and that they would be larger than one would want.
Which communities, if you recall?
I don't exactly. Like, I just remember that several of the ones that were mentioned were in the city of Vero Beach rather than in the unincorporated area. And I actually prepared a slide that shows, sure, I figured this question would come up, so. Here, it's all the way down. I'll just go to, I'll just have a little map here. So, and this is kind of a rough calculation because it excludes conservation lands and all of the municipal coastal properties. But essentially, there's approximately 617 properties that would be affected that have marginal docks, or in some cases, was a little liberal with the definition and included some embayments that have really kind of restricted waterway widths. And overwhelmingly, a good, approximately 280 of these properties were in the moorings. There are some restrictions already in place that the moorings has for boat shelters, but obviously we have to assume that in the future that could change. And so it really is less than half of the total docks that would be in the unincorporated county that could see a boat shelter that is extended all the way to the, to the riparian lines. And realistically, I think that was the main concern, and that was the one dissent. I think Commissioner Plakowicz was the one that had the largest discussion about the items, and in fact voted in favor of it because of the added criteria that they wanted us to look at for preventing that abuse of size.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions to staff? At this point, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to speak to this item? Please approach the podium. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. David Cox, Periwinkle Drive in Summer Place. And to return to Commissioner Moss's question, the one vote in that Planning and Zoning Commission meeting that was opposed to the change was Planning and Zoning Commissioner Landers. And in this run-through, more recently, he voted for it. I think I just didn't do a very good job of explaining the constraints that exist for marginal docks. And the county's guidelines that limit the size of marginal docks are actually not as restrictive as the state's. And so by the time these docks, if the state has permitted a marginal dock, unless an adjacent property owner has signed a waiver to allow that dock to be closer to the riparian line, the state's permitting constrains the size of the dock more severely, smaller than what the county would do. And I want to turn this over to my partner, Chris Pinson, who actually builds these things. and he has a few comments to make, and I think I'll reserve some time to come back up briefly. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Commissioners, for taking the time to discuss this. Thanks, Stephen, for the presentation. I'm Chris Pinson, 481 Avocado in Sebastian. I also am co-owner of Indian River Docks. We build docks anywhere from St. Lucie to Brevard County, mainly in the Indian River County area. And I work closely with David Cox on the permitting of these projects because I'm the guy in the field. I know all the conditions as far as water depths and property sizes and so forth. And we also been working closely with Stephen, which it's been a confusing process since the LDR changed. Although it was very restrictive at 400 square feet, we at least knew the guidelines. Unfortunately, though, it severely impacted our economic development here because, as we know, people spend millions of dollars to live on the water. They have a right of expectation to have a single-family residential dock. The state allows them to have 2 residential boat slips with boat lifts. The state and federal government also allows them to cover those with unwalled shelters for protection of their investment. As technology has grown in the boating industry, bigger boats have been designed to float in less water, and that is simply to allow them to be operated in a shallow draft situation. So as we know, we live in the aquatic preserve area of the Indian River Lagoon. So the state has very specific guidelines on the draft of a vessel, how far the draft of the vessel needs to be away from the tallest submerged aquatic vegetation. So there are natural aspects that restrict sizes of vessels. So what we're asking for is not to think that we're going to bring in 50-foot yachts and try to put a unwalled structure over top of it, because there's natural guidelines that fall into play with the state and the federal government. Also, one of the biggest problems that we're running into right now is an unintended consequence of the new LDR. And for one example, I have a property owner, and they have a dock. They aspire to have a 25 to 30-foot center console boat. They only need 42 inches of water, so they build their dock out to 42 inches of water. 48 inches of water is what the state allows them to go to. We can't go any further. Terminus has to stop at 48 inches of water. 48 inches of water in the Indian River Lagoon is very hard to find, but it's very, very acceptable to build a dock to 48. He doesn't need to go out that far. To get to 48, he has to build another 100 feet of dock in the shallower water to obtain 48 inches of water. So if you can follow me here, if I say you don't need to go that far, we can build a dock, say 150 foot long, not 350 feet long. It's plenty of room for your vessel that you aspire to have, and we can put a structure over it. Well, if you do the math on the structure, and 50% of the dock does not add up to the amount of unwalled structure he has, he says, well, I'm going to go ahead and build the dock out further to obtain the ability to build a larger unwalled structure. Am I making sense here? Mm-hmm. So it's encouraging people to build out larger and bigger docks to be able to use the 50% rule to get the larger boat shelter, if that makes sense. In other instances, we have customers that have to build parallel to their seawall or their property. They're not in a deed-restricted area, they're not in a canal system, but they do have a mangrove island across from their property that restricts them from building out further. So 25% rule, which the state has, is in place. So they are forced to have a structure very close to their property. The property also could have 48 inches of water right off the seawall, so all they can have is a terminal. Well, this is very restrictive to somebody that wants to be able to dock a boat. A 400-foot unwalled structure only allows you to have like a 20-foot small boat. And as we know, people don't necessarily buy 20-foot boats to live in a $4 million house. Not that money is the concern here, but it does have an unintended consequence, and it's encouraging larger docks and larger projects to obtain the ability to put a larger unwalled shelter in place. So, happy to answer any questions.
The question I have, and Stephen, you had shown the map, I think you included Vero Shores and River Shores as communities that this would apply to, is that correct?
Right.
So the 2,000-foot limit would apply to unwalled shelters along these fairly narrow canals in those subdivisions, is that correct or not?
I believe that ordinance that we're talking about with the state requirement, the 2,000 limit, is for the aquatic preserve. So if you're in a man-made canal area, they do not have the 2,000 square foot upper boundary. But again, there are other restrictions in place.
Okay, so, well, both River Shores and Vero Shores are man-made. So then what we're proposing here today would not apply to them? Is that correct? or-
No, the ordinance that we're proposing would apply to them. What I was trying to convey with the state statutes is that those are for the aquatic preserve areas. So when you get into a man-made canal system, you know, the aquatic preserve boundary stops where the dredging and man-made canal begins, more or less.
All right, so here, let me phrase it another way. In Vero Shores, it's a man-made canal. How big, if we approve this, how big of an unwalled shelter can somebody build in Vero Shores or River Shores?
So it would be tied to the size of the vessel that they're trying to moor, but it's reined in by the fact that they're going to have the 10 or 15-foot sides. I think Vero Shores is 10 feet. So you would have a 10-foot setback on either side, you know, side property line extending out into the canal. They'd have to build it within that footprint along the seawall. So,
And they would be able to go up 20 feet.
yeah, correct.
So just, my only concern here is, you know, in those subdivisions, the canals are fairly narrow. And you can be sitting in your house on your back patio, and you can probably see a good ways down the canal either way. If these big 20-foot high shelters start popping up, I think it's going to block a lot of people's view. And I think we're going to hear back from neighbors that, hey, you know, I used to be able to see down the whole canal. Now there's this 20-foot high, 800 square foot roof in my view, and I can't see down the canal anymore. And I just think that in those smaller subdivisions with smaller canals, going up 20 feet like that is going to be blocking a lot of people's views, and we're going to be getting a lot of pushback from folks not very happy with what their neighbors have just put up.
I mean, I can tell you that I have seen in Vero Shores, most of the covered shelters are actually the canvas type, not like the constructed, you know, fully roofed structures like Chris is building typically. He might be able to speak to the demand for that more or less, but I think the unfortunate thing I've seen as well is that those generally have not been permitted in most cases, and so we're actually seeking
Probably
code
not,
enforcement for some of those. But
Chris wouldn't know anything about that, though.
No, just to address that, most of the areas that are in the unincorporated Indian River County, they all have their own HOAs in place that either restrict the size of unwalled shelters or don't allow them. The moorings you're not allowed to cover your boats.
Okay.
Some areas of the moorings you're not even allowed to have a boat lift because of the view shed issue. Most of the other areas, and there are very few of them that we found, the people specifically go to those areas so they can have a covered boat slip. It's a protected canal, and the neighborhood understands that that's what's allowed before they actually move in. So I've done quite a few, particularly on the Sebastian area, I guess it'd be just south of Indian River Drive along those canal systems, which are man-made. A lot of them are old DOT ditches or mosquito impoundment outflows and things of that nature. And they live there because they can live in a canal, not worry about being in the open water. They're outside the aquatic preserve, so they have a little bit more flexibility as far as being able to maintain and dredge their boat slip. And they also want a covered boat slip, and the houses are lined up, and everybody understands that that's why they're there, so they can have these, you know, these benefits. So we see very little problem. I've only run into one situation where we were going to build an unwalled shelter, but unfortunately the riparian lines were depicted incorrectly, and once we straightened out the riparian lines, the problem was solved. So,
Okay, yeah, thank you.
And I was just going to add that, and since I've been at the county, I can only think of one issue that we've had in that area with an unwalled shelter, and it was twofold. It was that it was unpermitted, and it was that it was at the terminus of the canal. And so if you're familiar with some of those, it'll be, I think in some cases, 5 parcels that all converge to the terminus of the canal. And so 2 of those properties have only 10 feet wide, and they put a lift and then covered it, and so then it was blocking the view of the water from the other terminal residents, and that's what caused the issue. But just along the length of the canals, I haven't received any complaints that I
I
can.
know we had one case, I don't know if it's the same one you're referring to, maybe Commissioner Fleischer will remember it, but it led pretty much to an all-out war between the two neighbors, and it ended up with a giant bamboo field with killer wasps in it or something. I don't know. It just got totally out of hand because the view was blocked. So I'm just trying to.
6 months long.
Yeah, it was terrible. But anyway, I just want to make sure that we don't do something that's going to result in that happening again. So, Dr. Cox.
Yes, Commissioner. In most of the canals that are off of the lagoon, especially those that Chris was referring to, those canal widths are about 70 feet. And so 20% is from the seawall or mean high is what you're allowed to extend to. And with the state's requirements for setbacks off the riparian lines, that's 25 feet on both sides. And your average lot size in those situations is probably about 90 to 100 feet width. Mm-hmm. And so you're down to 50 feet wide by about 20 feet extension into the canal. So you're really talking about a pretty small footprint. Yes, you do have the opportunity to build a structure that is 20 feet high. But as Chris mentioned, the number of communities that restrict any boat lift covers is there are, I don't know, maybe 40% of the potential marginal docks that are in canals have their own HOAs, they have their own control, very local control. So there are layers and layers of regulations to try to deal with the small, the small end of the spectrum. And as Mr. Hitt had referred to, on the open water situations, we really have the unintended consequence of pushing people to build bigger docks than they want.
I don't have a real problem on the open shoreline areas because those shelters are out far enough that your view's not impacted, and I'm just more concerned about the canals, that's all.
Sure, and this is a situation we have with people. I've watched new houses go up in my neighborhood where people who had two-story houses for decades are having a new house go in next to them that is taller and blocking their ocean view. Everybody's got their private property rights, and riparian rights do come into play. There has to be a balance, and you hope that people who move into a community like that are going to be simpatico with their neighbors, and they're not going to do something outrageous. But are there any?
I think our code enforcement people can tell you that hope doesn't always work out. But
That's true. That's true.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to comment on the proposed ordinance or LDL change? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. Commissioners.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Vice Chair.
gentlemen, this puts us in line with the state.
For the most part, like I said, the only difference would be we don't have a 2,000 square foot cap that you would see in the state ordinance.
And it does create, Mr. Penson, you said there's been a lot of confusion. This would create that longer dock, not necessarily needed, shorter dock thing. Yeah, because I've seen that happen. I'm like, you can see some of them in some areas where like, why is that dock so long? Why is that dock so short? It's kind of confusing. I found this very fascinating when I read it. I didn't know that it was such a big deal, that the confusion was there with that. And I appreciate y'all bringing it forward. Yeah, I think it's something we need to do. I think, consistency is always better. It makes for better understanding. It makes for better neighbors, hopefully. It makes things easier on you guys and the contractor. I think it's worth doing. I would remove staff recommendations, sir.
Second with discussion.
We have a motion by Vice Chair Ehrman, second by Commissioner Flesher. Under discussion, Commissioner Flesher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to point out, I find it intrinsically unique that Dr. David Cox, a very strong environmentalist, is moving forward something to increase the size and scope of a structure in the waterways. It's very interesting. I appreciate the presentation. Yes, as the chairman pointed out, we've had some toe-to-toes about dock size, length, style, and even hornets. It is a very sensitive issue, and I appreciate you stating how much more people have to build out into the waterways just to get that depth, but the limitations on what they have to do, which is increasing in cost, and not only that, but actually the covering of the grasses, which is also a serious concern as well. When you have to build out to 300 feet out, it's quite a distance of covered waterway. So, thank you. I appreciate it, and it's easy to support.
Okay. Any other commissioners? Okay. We have a motion by Vice Chair Ehrman, second by Commissioner Flesher. All in favor signify with aye. 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 Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Bill, you're going to kick off the next one, right?
Yeah, this jack of all trades needs no introduction. I'll just introduce,
Hey, Phil,
Ryan Sweeney?
let me just read the item here real quick.
go ahead.
Second public hearing is a consideration of Bratan Property of Indian River County LLC's request for a land development regulation amendment to allow automobile parking and storage in the Pro, OCR, Med, CN, and CL zoning districts. This is legislative in nature. And now, Phil.
Let me introduce Ryan Sweeney, our Chief of Current Development.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioners, for the record, Ryan Sweeney, Chief of Current Development. Today, we have a request for a land development regulation amendment to allow automobile parking and storage in the Pro, OCR, Med, CN, and CL zoning districts. A little bit of background on how we got here today. Initially, an applicant, the Bratan, submitted an LDR amendment application to allow automobile parking and storage in the CL zoning district in order to allow parking of vehicles across the street from their office site. A few weeks or months later, a second interested party requested to piggyback on that original request to allow automobile parking and storage in the OCR zoning district. And then staff took a look at the other, what we'll call lower intensity commercial zoning districts, and decided that it best to be consistent and allow this automobile parking and storage in the all 5 lower intensity commercial zoning districts. A brief slide about the LDR amendment process. LDR amendments are legislative in nature. This specific one requires a public hearing by the Planning and Zoning Commission with a recommendation to the board. And then if changing the list of allowable uses, the Ps, the As, and the Ss in the zoning districts, it requires 2 public hearings by the BCC, and we'll touch on process at the end about the special call versus regular meeting as well. So the proposed ordinance will amend 3 different sections, 3 different LDR sections. The first section is the definitions. It will create a definition for automobile parking and storage, which specifically defines automobiles, passenger vans, utility vans, and light-duty trucks. It will prohibit or not allow large commercial vehicles like dump trucks, bucket trucks, RVs, or boats. The second section, it will designate automobile parking and storage as an administrative permit use in the 5 lesser intense commercial districts, Pro, OCR, Med, CN, and CL. Currently, automobile parking and storage is a permitted use in the 2 higher intensity commercial districts, CG and CH, general commercial and heavy commercial. The third section will create a new section for automobile parking and storage in our 971 specific land use criteria section. Because it's administrative permit use, it will require Planning and Zoning Commission approval, and most importantly, it identifies 7 specific land use criteria that will apply to these 5 zoning districts. Again, the definition will also apply to the CG and CH, but these 7 criteria will only apply as an administrative permit use to the 5 lesser intense zoning districts. The 7 specific criteria in a summary format, they're a little bit more specific in the actual ordinance, but item number 1 requires all parking and storage areas to be paved with either asphalt or concrete and must meet the dimensional criteria of our typical commercial parking lot, stall widths, drive aisle widths, depth, everything that would be typical of a typical sort of paved parking lot. It prohibits parking or storage of commercial vehicles, boats, or RVs, and we already have a definition for commercial vehicles as well. It prohibits commercial or pay-to-park facilities, so this is only for parking lots that are accessory or subordinate to some other permitted use, or it could be standalone, but not to derive income. Number 4 requires a lighting plan and appropriate shielding, and that is reviewed during the site plan process. Number 5 requires a type C landscape buffer with a 3-foot tall opaque feature between the parking area and any residentially designated properties.
So Ryan, before you leave that, going back to number 2, the definition of commercial vehicle,
Correct.
that would be the larger,
Yeah, there's a link.
the whole thing here is like a cleaning service wanted to be able to park their vans.
Correct.
And those would be commercial vans, right?
No. They're
So the
passenger.
definition would,
It would allow those.
Right,
It would
okay.
not allow, it's a length, weight. It won't allow like dump trucks, bucket trucks.
okay, I just want to make sure that the
It
cleaning,
will allow the cleaning service vans, but those
park their
are,
van there. Commissioner Adams, you had a question?
I was just seeking clarification on
Sure.
commercial vehicles too. I'm assuming it means the heavier things, more like a semi or like a box truck.
correct, yes. Like I said, there's a length and weight limitation. It's the same limitation that allows one commercial vehicle to be parked in a residential area. So again, if you work for a cleaning service and you bring your vehicle home, it still has to meet certain criteria, but you can't bring your big rig or, your tree service bucket truck.
Okay.
And the other thing I was going to say about number 5 is you will find in these lesser intense commercial districts, they do oftentimes either directly above or nearby residential zoning districts. So it is key to better buffer this use from residential area. 6 requires all standard perimeter buffers apply to other project perimeters. So oftentimes you'll have maybe a CL or CN site adjacent to residential on one side, and then the other 2 or 3 sides is commercial or roadways. So we still have all those other standard buffer requirements as well. 7 requires, if it is a remote or freestanding site that serves an adjacent site, to be connected via an existing or proposed sidewalk system, which can include signage, crosswalks, things of that nature. And lastly, staff does support the requested LDR amendments based on the definition, the requirement for administrative permit use approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and the 7 specific land use criteria that we've just went over. At its regular meeting of September 22nd, 2022, the Planning and Zoning Commission voted 5-0 to recommend that the BCC adopt the proposed ordinance. And again, we don't see this often, but again, when a LDR amendment changes the list of permitted uses, the state statute requires that the board hold 2 public hearings, one of which must be held after 5 p.m. unless the board, by a supermajority, either 4 or 5 members vote to have it at a regular meeting. We've oftentimes recommended that we just hold it at a regular meeting. We do advertise it. It's clear that we're making that recommendation here today.
Okay.
And with that, staff's recommendation is that the board directs staff to make any changes to the proposed ordinance if applicable, and by a vote of 4 or 5 members, set the second final adoption hearing for the regular board meeting of December 6, 2022, which would start at our normal 9 a.m. start time.
Good. Commissioners, any questions of staff?
I have a question.
Commissioner Moss?
With regard to the administrative permit use, if I understood it correctly, you were stating that you felt that that's necessary due to consistency purposes. Has there been a problem with consistency in this regard? I mean, my concern is we're going to have a proliferation of parking lots.
Sure, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Moss. No, so there are 3 levels of approval in the code. Permitted use, which is a by right use. You are guaranteed to be allowed to do it in that zoning district, and that can be approved at the staff level. The administrative permit use is sort of our middle tier approval. it requires that it go to the Planning and Zoning Commission so they can vet that, you know, not that staff doesn't do their job, but hey, we're showing that we meet these criteria. And then the highest level, which you all see on occasion, is special exception use, requires Planning and Zoning and board approval. We were more comfortable with the middle tier. When I said consistency was, this initially started as an amendment just to amend one zoning district. Then we had a second group come to us to amend a second zoning district, and then staff said, hey, look, we don't want to do this. And then a third guy comes out and say, hey, I have a pro site that wants to do the same thing. So we just wanted to be consistent across those 5 zoning districts. I don't foresee a proliferation of parking lots. Again, these are primarily just to serve existing businesses that are short on parking, or not short on parking, but want to have more parking.
And I would add, we're making improvements to these empty lots. You know, an empty lot that's unimproved, that they're using as an impromptu parking lot anyway, is a problem. It's a code enforcement issue. It takes a lot of staff time to enforce, and ultimately, it's for the benefit of the business. This would be a required, buffered, landscaped, improved lot, so I think it's moving in the right direction and giving flexibility. Just my opinion.
Commissioner Moss, you answer your question, or you?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Although I don't see a problem with, two instances do not a trend make.
Correct.
At least not for me. But I think it's 3 points to a line mathematically. But at any rate, that being said, with regard to the other issue, that Florida statute 125.66, that one of the meetings should be after 5 p.m.
Yes.
I could not support having it during the day. I think that's denying people access. That's why it's in the Florida statute that way. I think eventually, I've had complaints about our regular meetings, that they're not offered in the evening, that we don't alternate. So I definitely could not support that.
Okay, and we'll deal with that separately. Commissioner Adams, do you have a question for staff? Or
It was more just a comment to Commissioner Moss's question. I think that the intention of this is that we have businesses that started and now they've grown, and maybe, which is a great thing. It's a great economic development problem to have. So doing something like this is allowing them to continue to grow on the same footprint, keeping some of that cost down, but providing to the businesses what they need to be successful. And at the end of the day, I think that's what our goal is here. So, I just kind of want to thank you guys for being responsive to the community and bringing these common sense kind of changes to us so we can continue to help our businesses thrive.
Okay. Any other questions?
Does it have to be consistent? The property, does it have to be contiguous to each other, or can it be across the street if the business owns across?
It could be across the street. Again, the way that it's set up is the criteria. It is a standalone, site. If it is adjacent or across the street from an existing business, it has to have that pedestrian connection. But yes, it can be separated by right-of-way or another parcel. The likelihood of seeing, a business with a satellite parking lot, a mile away, I don't foresee it. If that becomes an issue, we can revisit it. But it is standalone.
Yeah, no.
And this is just to echo probably Phil's point. This is a substantial investment. We're doing stormwater, paving, landscape. It's going to cure a separate issue that we alluded to of sort of these impromptu dirt, gravel lots that kind of morph over time. So it will delineate the spaces. It will have defined driveways, all the signage that goes with, everything that you would expect to see safe motoring public.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
The
Mr. Feichler,
improvements, and thank you, there are a lot of improvement requirements before somebody moves forward, but they are far less than the reload of an entire business. And most certainly, it's a tremendous asset, echo Commissioner Adams' statements as well. I don't think we have a tremendous fear of bringing up something you recently discussed was Narcosi. To look down into Orlando and see nothing but pay to park and these lots, one after another, we have zero fear of that happening. This is merely support for business expansion and parking a few smaller type commercial vehicles so that the business can survive, thrive, and expand
Correct.
in a controlled environment.
With that, I'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there anyone from the public that wishes to speak on this matter? Good morning, welcome.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, commissioners, counselor, Mr. Chairman. I'm Joseph Paladin. The Bratton family and Plate Cleaning is one of my clients. I represent them. I'm the owner's rep on this. I've represented this project for around 3 years. We've gone through all the approvals we had to go through to get to the top shelf. And I've worked with code enforcement, I've worked with staff, I've worked with the county to get everything up to a standard of a level that everybody would be happy with. The only change I would ask for, you're asking for a Type C opaque feature. I've been a developer for around 40 years. I can tell you that it's really tough to get an opaque feature with a Type C buffer. So I would recommend we up that to a Class B buffer for an opaque feature. I think it's much easier to achieve opaque feature with Class B than Class C. So I would raise that standard. I would voluntarily do it, but I would say that you make that part of your regulation. That would be my recommendation. So anyway, I've represented this project for 3 years. Like I said, we work very closely with the county, with staff, with code enforcement. And I think this relieves a lot of problems too, as far as code enforcement violations, where people have someplace to park their vehicle, safe, secure. It'll be landscaped, have a nice entry. It'd be very, I went through this with engineering and everybody in the county, so we met all of the standards. It's going to be a nice looking project. It's just not going to be a fence there. And it's going to be landscaped. The entry's going to be very well maintained and very nice, and it's going to achieve a problem that we have as far as employees being able to park their vehicles in a safe, secure parking lot instead of being parked in a right-of-way where they shouldn't be, or other places where maybe they shouldn't be parking. So it solves a lot of problems. But I would ask that you add that Class B buffer to your regulation. I think that would be in the best interest of
Ryan, is staff good with the proposed change?
Of course, I mean, usually more more regulatory is not an issue. The only thing I would work or think about is they have a relatively large site that they can accommodate, and this is a new ground-up site. If somebody's trying to retroactively do this, the C is a narrower buffer. I'm fine with it if that's the direction of the board, but I would like to, if we're going to maintain flexibility, C is the minimum. They can always volunteer to go to.
Right.
Yeah, and Mr. Paladin, I really appreciate your offer to make it a Type B, but I think, like you said, for existing older lots or something, it might be a lot added more cost to it. So I think maybe just we leave it as a C and see how it goes, and we can change it to B down the road. If
Well, maybe coming in with a voluntary B buffer if they can.
yeah, I don't think they're going to turn you down if you do that. So
Absolutely not.
yeah,
Happy
so.
to.
That was just a suggestion.
Yeah, and maybe you guys can recommend that or
Right.
suggest it at.
So this will go to, assuming the LDR passes, it's the actual specific project will also go to P&Z. We can, they volunteer, that the plan will show that type of buffer.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Paladin.
Questions?
Nope, I think we're good.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak to this item? Seeing none and having provided ample opportunity to speak, I'll close the public hearing. Commissioners?
Not approval, but the.
Yeah, so let me, I'd like to do two things. One is, well, I guess basically we are voting for the second meeting, so we'll just,
Yeah, we're not, given the discussion about the C versus the B, we're not going to take that as a change. We'll keep it at C, so there'll be no change.
so let's just do this. Commissioner Adams, if you just make a motion that we would accept the proposed ordinance as presented and have staff bring it back, and then we'll have a vote on the meeting.
Fine.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Flesher, to approve the proposed ordinance as drafted. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed.
So you're opposed to the actual ordinance. We're not talking about the meeting time.
Yes.
You're opposed to the ordinance, okay? That motion passes 4-1 with Commissioner Moss opposed. Now, I'll entertain a motion as to when we have the second final adoption hearing.
What are our choices?
We can either have it, staff is recommending December 6th at our normal 9 o'clock as part of our regularly scheduled meeting, or the other option would be to schedule a special call evening meeting after 5 p.m.
Move to do it at a regular meeting?
Second.
We have a motion from Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Adams, to schedule the second final adoption hearing for the regular meeting of December 6, 2022, which starts at 9 o'clock in the morning. Is there anyone that wishes to comment on this motion before us? Hearing none, all in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Opposed?
That motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Moss opposed. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Mr. Paladin.
Thank you.
Chairman, may I have a moment?
Sure.
I know that since Commissioner Davis left, we really don't operate under Robert's rules entirely. But seeing as I have one opposing vote, I was wondering if you'd grant me the liberty of asking Commissioner Moss why she's opposed to this after we had a unanimous vote at P&Z, full staff approval, and full code enforcement approval. I'd just like to know why you're against it.
I don't have a problem if you want to ask Mr. Paladin, but certainly Commissioner Moss, it'd be up to her to decide if she wishes to answer or not.
And I'll honor her request.
Of course, I'd be happy to. I'm not convinced that any of this is necessary. I'm still concerned about a proliferation of parking lots. If parking spaces were any indication of a business's success, then Indian River Mall would be a huge success. Instead, it's a gigantic empty parking lot. We have plenty of paved surfaces. That being said, I'm especially disappointed with regard to this meeting not having it after 5 o'clock. We need more participation from the community in everything we do.
Yeah, I have no
And
problem.
and in this case, well, let me finish. You asked. You can hear it. The Florida statute specifically points out that this meeting should be after 5 o'clock. And it's for a reason.
I have no problem with the meeting being after 5 o'clock. I wouldn't oppose that.
Well, you didn't say that before the vote was taken.
Pardon me?
You didn't say that before the vote
So
was
I
taken.
think at this point, Commissioner Moss has answered your question
Thank you
regarding
very
her,
much. I appreciate you.
her position, so we'll move on. We pulled the public discussion items, so now we move to county administrator matters. First is the four-county joint board meeting. Mr. Brown.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to do something that I do best, which is turn this item over to somebody that knows more about it than me. Turn over to Kathy Copeland, our Legislative and Communications Manager. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome, Kathy.
Good morning. I am Kathy Copeland, the Legislative Affairs and Communications Manager, and it's nice to be in front of you. This is a relatively easy item. The legislative session for 2023 doesn't begin until April, but the staff is busy at work preparing for it. The resolution in front of you is to approve a four-county commission meeting, between Indian River County, Martin County, St. Lucie County, and Okeechobee County. It will not be a voting meeting, but it will be an opportunity for you all to hear the priorities from staff from each county, and then to communicate amongst yourselves and decide if you have some areas of interest that you might want to jointly support during the session. We will be bringing to you our priorities in the next couple of weeks, probably November the 15th, for you to review, to comment on, to add, to delete before we go to the meeting that is proposed for December the 15th. I did look at your calendars, and so you do have a placeholder, so I know you're available. But we are required by law for you to pass a resolution to approve your participation.
And this is just like the previous tri-county meetings we've held, other than now we're inviting Okeechobee to join us. Is that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, perfect. Commissioners, any questions?
I do. I just want to have a comment. I was going to say kind of the same thing you did, and I think it's great that we are growing our kind of legislative, regional, team to now include Okeechobee County. I think it gives us a little bit more oomph, not that we didn't have enough with the three, but that is fantastic. So glad to see that. I'm always look forward to this meeting to kind of get our legislative priorities lined up as a region. So I would be happy to move adoption.
Second. I think we have a motion by Commissioner Adams, and I think Vice Chair Ehrman beat you to the punch there. Sorry, Commissioner Flesher, but it happens. Okay, all in favor of the motion signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Next item is the ratification of a collective bargaining agreement between Indian River County Emergency Services District and Indian River County Firefighters Paramedics Association, Local 2201 IAFF, effective October 1, 2022 through September 30, 2025. And Jason, you're going to kick it off?
I'll kick us off. We have before you a proposed 3-year agreement between the IAFF that represents our firefighters and firemedics and paramedics. It would begin October 1 of 22 and continue on through September 30th, 2025. Some of the highlights are a first-year general wage increase of 4% that will come into effect in January. We've also made our paramedic incentive more uniform rather than the kind of mixed bag that we have today. One of the big changes is an increase in Kelly days. Right now, our employees receive 3 Kelly days a year. Most of the jurisdictions south of us and many around have what's called 3-week Kelly days. This gets us on a transition much closer to that. In the first year, we would go to 9-week Kelly days, and then year 2 to 6-week Kelly days. So we're kind of getting halfway to that 3-year Kelly day thing. That was a big priority from the union bargaining side. Also, just a couple of other minor things, a career path for rescue sergeant. Right now we have 2 firemedics on an ambulance, on a med unit. This would provide a higher level position for advancement there to get some more seniority and experience on our med units, which we think is a positive thing. And I think this is a good agreement for everyone involved. I think it's a positive step forward. I do want to thank both the management team, which I'll call Team Dave's, for lack of a better name right now, with Dave Johnson, Dave Rattray, and David Kiernan, along with Sean Gibbons. I don't know what happened with Sean, but we were almost had 4 of a kind there. Also want to thank Mike Zito and Suzanne Boyle as members of the management bargaining team, and Kristen Daniels in the budget office for costing out the various different things and finding out a way to make this all work and fit and in with our budget and not have a tax increase, which we're very happy about. That we think we've made a big swing towards making sure that we're competitive and a place that where folks want to work and continue to make their career here. So we think that's a big thing. I see John O'Connor in the audience. I want to thank him, as well as Kristen Brewer, and I'll call them Team Tyler's for lack of a better word, for Tyler Lodgson and Tyler Parker as part of the union bargaining team. I want to thank them for their collaboration on this, and I want to thank the membership for their support. I think this is a positive agreement that moves us forward, and don't know if I've missed anything, if we need to add any more, but want to recommend that the board authorize the approval of the agreement and authorize the chair to sign. So, thank you.
Jason, just 2 things I'd like to add. One is this is effective October 1st. Now, I know a lot of these things don't kick in until 23, but being effective October 1st means that none of the firefighters and paramedics will miss out on anything, because it's active as of October 1st. So no one's going to miss out on anything because of the negotiations or anything. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then secondly, I really felt the fact that we had a shade meeting with the board early on in the negotiations in allowing the board members to give staff some input on what we might want to see. I think that really made things, well, hopefully it made things easier on your part, kind of knowing where the board wanted to go and what we wanted to be done. And I just think that, Commissioner Flesher, I don't know how many contract things we've done now, but it's been a lot. And I think this has been one of the more smoother negotiation periods. And I think that goes to both sides. John O'Connor and his team, we appreciate that, and Chief. But I think just having the board giving some guidance helps on the management side of things and gets us closer to the common ground than previous negotiations were. So I just want to congratulate everybody on bringing this in effective October 1st in a pretty good negotiation process. So thank you to everybody involved in this. I think it went well. Chief, did you want to speak, or John, did you want to say anything? Yep.
Thank you, Commissioners. Dave Johnson, Emergency Service Director. I just want to thank everyone involved, especially the Commission and you, for your support early on during the SHADE meeting, giving us the tools to go forward and make this agreement as good as it can be, to pinpoint our issues that we were dealing with and to try to solve them. I got to thank Mr. Brown for his guidance. He was there every moment of the time and leading us on. And I would like to thank both negotiating teams. They were very professional and had a pinpoint resolved in what we needed to do and what we had to do to get there. I'd like to thank the IAFF and their members for voting this through at a very high margin. And I'd like to thank my team for being there to support me and the efforts we had during negotiations. It was very smooth. It was one of the smoothest negotiating terms I've ever seen, and I'd like to thank everyone involved.
Yep, great. Very good. Thank you, Chief. Good morning, John. Welcome.
Morning, Commissioners. John O'Connor, President, IAFF Local 2201. I just want to say thanks to the Commissioners for listening to our concerns. We had multiple discussions over the years about retention issues, so forth and so on, and I think this contract reflects that, and it will provide the foundation for us to build on as we grow as an organization. And more importantly, thanks to everyone involved, our negotiating team, Mark Floyd, our lead negotiator, and the Commissioners and staff, and of course, Chief Johnson, Chief Rattray. So we really appreciate it, and looking forward to the future.
Very good. Thank you, John.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Vice Chair Urban?
The statements you just made about how many contracts you and Commissioner Fleischer have negotiated with this. Well, this was my first time being on the other side. I probably negotiated as many of those on the other side of the table with you, except I did not negotiate the contract where we had the 14-hour session here in the commission chamber. So I will feign on that one. But for me, it was a different being on this side of the table. Even though I'd been retired 6 years now, I remember many years of doing this. And being on this side of the table, I saw a different perspective of it. But the bottom line is we needed to take care of our firefighters. We needed to take care of the retention issue. We needed to be competitive in the wage market, no matter what it took. And we did that. And I will tell you that I appreciated every effort that we made, the commissioners made in the SHADE meeting. Jason, I want to commend you and Mike Zito both for the job that y'all have done. And we did forget to mention Tad Stone's name. Tad was an integral part in this, and I appreciate all his work that he did. But this was a really good learning experience for me, being on this side. Sometimes it drug along. It was a little slower than I wanted, and I kept telling Jason, let's get this done, and we did, and we got it done in time. And even though it was close to the time running out, we got it done, and I appreciate that. I think a lot of that was just based on scheduling conflicts with attorneys involved and things like that. But I was so very glad to see this done. I think we're on a good path to retain employees, to have one of the best. We've always had a great fire service because we've always had good people. But in the future, I think we're going to be a premier fire rescue service in the state of Florida. I see it happening. We can retain employees. We have a good foundation to build upon. I think we have wage openers, though, as only in the next 2 years in 23, 24, which is good. And I hope that we continue that path, because I believe we do have a good foundation with everything else, other than the minor things that'll come up, changes and stuff that'll happen over the years. But I think we're on a good path. I think Chief Johnson and his staff's on a good path, and John and his crew are on a good path. And I saw more for the first time, I saw a good working relationship between between us and the firefighters, and I appreciate that on both counties' parts. And I think both sides, again, Jason, Mike, Tad, Dave, John, and all his folks, I think it was a really good session, and I think we can improve upon it very easily in the future, so I'm looking forward to it. So good job and congratulations to everybody.
And if that was a motion to approve the agreement, we have a second by Commissioner Flesher.
No further discussion other than what you just stated.
Is there anyone that wishes to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. We recognized Vice Mayor Fred Jones earlier. I see that Sebastian Councilmember Bob McPartlin has joined us. So Bob, welcome. Good to see you. And before we get to the next item, I think we're going to go ahead and take a short break. We will come back here at 10:40. Next is under, third item under county administrator is transition planning for new county administrator. Commissioners, in your backup is the resignation letter from Jason Brown. I'd be glad to entertain a motion to reject the resignation letter. All seriousness, I think that we'll miss you, Jason, and you've done a fantastic job. This is really a tough subject for us to have to tackle right now, but certainly appreciate your forthrightness and coming forward. And I think doing what's best for you and your family is the most important thing. So while this puts us in a tough spot, I certainly want to support you in anything you do, and best wishes for you moving forward. As I said, I think you've done a fantastic job. So that's what makes this so difficult right now. But anyway, with that, Jason, you'll go ahead and kick this off, I take it?
Yes.
Okay, so transition planning for new county administrator.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for the kind words, Chairman. And don't want to make this about me. This is so as you know, I'll be leaving at the end of the year. Wanted to put this on. And I'll say, but it's been a tremendous opportunity, working here, and I've appreciated working with the commission and your guidance and leadership and all of the people that I've gotten to work with. So thank you for that. However, I will be leaving at the end of the year, so I wanted to provide this item as a vehicle to discuss the next steps in finding the next county administrator to work for the five of you. Just going over some various different options that you have, starting from at first and just an internal posting, which would be for just internal candidates. If the board so desired to do that, HR could open that up as we and open that to inside applicants only. If that is the board's option, that would be the fastest and least expensive option. Next up would be an open search managed by Human Resources. That could be done, a statewide or a national search, just done with in-house resources from our HR department, and doing the advertising and recruitment through the various different options available to us, with Florida Association of Counties, ICMA, League of Cities, and some of the professional associations that could be done, and would be a relatively limited cost, with the exception of the various advertising expenses and the in-house staff time. This option and the other two that I'm going to mention to you probably are going to be a 4 to 5 month process. Up next is the Florida Association of County Managers, which I belong to, has a recruitment service that they provide for counties. And what they do is they will gather a volunteer group of current and potentially recently retired county administrators to have a selection committee where this is kind of a self-service recruitment type option that's less than a full-service outside recruitment firm. However, they help out and provide advisory services of how to do the outreach, work to do outreach among the network there. And what they basically do is they'll have 3 or 4 county administrators. Usually they have someone from an adjacent county or nearby counties. I can mention that I've served on one for Okeechobee County just a year or two ago, along with Martin County Administrator at the time. And it's a good process, and what they do is they narrow down the applicant pool. The goal is generally to provide about 5 to 7 shortlist candidates to the board, and then they turn that over to the board to basically start with the first round of interviews, and then the process proceeds from there. That is a $7,500 fee from FACM. Again, they have indicated their willingness to help, but if the board decided to go in that direction, we'd need to reach out and make sure that they've got the group of volunteer county administrators together, which I don't foresee being an issue. And then the final option would be a full executive recruitment firm. The cost for that is typically going to be about $25,000 to $35,000, and that includes most of the expenses, such as the advertising in there. So it's more than the FACM, but it includes the advertising and outreach costs that would be done. this would probably cast the broadest net because those firms all have their, established contacts and groups and folks, they've got their finger on the pulse of people that are looking for these types of positions. And with their, established networks, and so that could be an option for the board. Again, those last three options are probably going to take a minimum of 4 months, potentially 5. I've provided we've got about 2 months to go now, so obviously if the board moves forward with one of these last three options, there's going to be need to be a determination made on an interim because the position will not be filled before the end of the year. And then I'd encourage you to have a discussion on, regardless which process you're going for, the types of traits that you're looking for, the types of challenges that you think this next person's going to face, and you'll want to start thinking about. Although I don't know if you need to set that today, but like range of compensation and things like that, I think it'd be helpful to have that conversation. So with that, I also have Suzanne Boyle here for HR, who's looked into some of these, and we can work to give you more details and more information on some of the resources that are available there if you would like. But with that, I'm happy to stop talking and turn it over to the board for you guys to have a discussion.
So, Jason, just one question on the utilizing the Florida Association of County Managers and then an executive recruitment firm. Would it make any sense to utilize both those options, or would you say it's more one or the other?
I think it's an either or. I mean, I think if you do the executive recruitment firm, that's a full service service, basically, if you will. And then the FACM is a lower cost, kind of more self-service. They're still out there doing that. They add value, but there would be more involvement from HR and things like that. And I've never seen where both of those processes are done. I think it would be one.
It'd be one or the other. Okay, good. So Jason, you've given us kind of like 4 broad options here. So why don't we start with our discussion just on those options of how we want to go forward. And well, Commissioner Moss, why don't we go ahead and start with you if you'd like. What your thoughts are and what you'd like to see as far as the search process right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would like to see the open search utilizing executive retirement firm. I'd like to cast as broad a net as possible. We went through this process at the city when we engaged the services of a new city attorney several years back. It's quite an interesting process when you go this route. I don't know what the other processes, if you have, what we did at City Council was the candidates were in the audience at one of the City Council meetings. It had been, at that time, pared down to 3 candidates. What they do is they meet individually with each member of, well, in this case, it would be County Commission, individual meetings. But then, and when the final analysis, when you narrowed it down to 3 candidates, it was public. And I believe very strongly it should be a public forum. It's a public service position. However, it's not non-elected. So this gives people the opportunity to understand who's being considered for this position and why, and listen to our questions, their responses. It makes everybody part of the process. The other thing is with the salary of this position, and I don't know what the range would be for someone, but that's also a consideration. I'm not interested in nickel and diming the process. This is the right range, $25,000 to $35,000. That's what the city spent years ago for the search process. So that sounds adequate to me as an estimate. And I did ask, I was just curious, I haven't been here as long as some of my colleagues, and I was wondering about the history of the position of county administrator. So I had asked to learn who were the last 5 that held that office. Of course, I know Mr. Baird, Mr. Brown's immediate predecessor. But prior to that was, and by the way, they could only go back 25 years because after that, the records are destroyed. And my question was not only the person who served, but what was that person's prior position, immediately prior? Where is that person coming from? So prior to Mr. Baird, and some of you already know this, I didn't, James Chandler. Date of hire was January of 1989, and he served until 2004. And he actually was a city manager who came from Hollywood, Florida. That was his immediate prior position. So I wouldn't want to limit us to only looking at people who already have experience as county administrators, because I'm assuming he did a good job at the time. But you want to, as I said earlier, you want to cast a very wide net with this, and you definitely want the community to be part of the process, because the person sitting in that position has a huge responsibility. In fact, for those who don't know, every single position reports to, except ours, we report to you, but everybody reports to the county administrator, everyone who works here. So, except Dylan, you don't need Dylan. So my point is, it's a huge job, a very, very important one. We need to get it right. The county is, and I'll also state the context. The county is at a pivotal point right now. You know, we're growing, we know that. We just took a census. We grew by quite a bit. We had some redistricting. We're looking to the future. You know, what do we want to be? And we need to have someone who's perhaps a bit of a visionary. And also, I think for me, our other primary concern is infrastructure. So, you know, I'd like to see some candidates who have had experience in not only maintaining, but also maximizing, infrastructure to make sure that we truly support businesses. It's infrastructure, not necessarily parking lots that support a business. I mean, every business needs a proper infrastructure. So I think that is it, and thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Moss. Commissioner Adams, your thoughts?
Thank you. And for clarification, we're going to talk about the process, and then we're going to come back and talk about challenges or what we're looking for.
Yeah, I think let's just work on the process
Okay.
first, kind of get that
Right.
decided, and then we can work on the other
I just wanted to
options,
make
yeah.
sure. Okay, so for me, I think our best route is going to be using more of a full-service firm. I think that takes some of the onus off of our HR staff, who, based on other issues on our agenda today, is probably going to have their hands full in the next several months. I also think it provides a much more neutral process and a much more, not that HR staff isn't professional, but a much more professional process for the stature of this position. I think that the $35,000 at the max end is really a minimal investment for the future of our county, especially when you consider the size of our budget. I think that will be the best way to move forward in a positive and professional manner. As far as what that process looks like, I don't disagree with Commissioner Moss that there needs to be some type of public interface, but I do want to just kind of remind everybody that we are the ones, the five of us are the ones charged with hiring the administrator. The administrator and the city and the county attorney work for us. We work for the community. So to the point that we need to take community input, I don't disagree with that, but I don't think that should be the only opportunity we have to interact with candidates. I think it's very important for all of us, whatever candidates rise to the top based on the criteria we will discuss shortly, that we get ample opportunity to really have the opportunity to get to know those people, where their skill sets are, do those skill sets, do those personalities match and mesh with what we want to see in that position. I think the City of Sebastian has been the most recent organization in the county to kind of go through this process when they hired Mr. Carlisle. And as I recall, they had private interviews, but then it wasn't so much public interviews as it was more of a public meet and greet for people to come out and kind of meet those applicants. I think that might be something that's a little bit of a better option for us, and it gives us the opportunity to see candidates and applicants interacting with the public, and gets the public the opportunity to speak to them, and then the public can come in and speak to us and give that input that way. So we get the formal process of the interview, on our end, and then the informal process of how do they interact with the public. As far as salary goes, I've done some research based on the data from a couple years ago as far as administrators' salaries across the state. Kim helped me whittle that down to counties that are most like us in budget size, in population size, and in kind of departments and those types of things. We are actually our current compensation package that Jason is receiving is actually puts us in a good spot in relation to like-sized and like us counties. So, I do think we need to set a range. I think that where we are right now is, as far as that goes, is a good place, and that is also and because it's so kind of in line with everybody else, that is something that I would rather see us keep the range that we have and then work that out as part of the negotiation process, because that final candidate is going to want to negotiate a package. They will probably want a contract with certain things in it. I don't know. It might be different than Jason's. It might be the same. Every candidate kind of wants something. Maybe it's similar to what they had somewhere else. But I think that our salary range is good, is what I'm trying to get across, and that any dickering with that salary range, in my opinion, is something that should be left to the negotiation process. So all in all, that's where I'm at.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Adams. Vice Chair Ehrman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel a lot the same way that Commissioner Moss and Commissioner Adams do. I think $25,000 to $35,000 is money well spent for the right person, to find the right person that we want here. So I'm for opening, utilizing the executive recruitment firm to do this. I think it does cast, as has been said, it does cast that wide net. I think we owe it to the county and to the citizens to look at anybody and everybody, whether it's internally, whether it's in the state of Florida, whether it's throughout the United States, to find the best person here. And until you get through and get going in the process, you don't know who that best person will be. And I think we need to at least have a choice of folks that we can look at. And sometimes a different perspective from somebody somewhere else might be a good thing. Maybe they've been through the areas that are at 165,000 people, or they know where we're going with our growth and what we need for things to make things better, because maybe they've experienced those problems, but maybe they haven't. But maybe they have a really good vision and idea. That's yet to be determined. So for myself right now, Mr. Chairman, I'm really strong on casting the wide net and going with the executive.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Commissioner Fleischer, your thoughts, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We haven't heard you yet. I know you'll wrap it up, but I can count a few, if not three. But I'll speak a little differently. We have a very unique environment in Indian River County. We have a very special place, and when I often say, when you turn on the national TV, you'll see a difference from Indian River County to all other areas, all other places that you visit, all other places that some of us called home, that are very different. And with that, I think that the very, very special place that Indian River County is deserves to have someone with intent, with institutional knowledge of the environment, not of the organization, of the environment, of what we are in Indian River County. I think it's very difficult to do that with a wide national search. I think, again, you run the risk of inviting those that we truly do not know. A national search takes 4, 5, 6 months. In addition, it will take much longer for that individual to acclimate to who we truly are and what we are and where we are at this juncture. We've climbed some very difficult hurdles with individuals who were born and raised here, with individuals who have worked here for 10, 20, and 30 years. And I think that we have to look at that before we look at the wide area search. Commissioner Moss pointed out something about bringing in the public to vet them out. That's more like a charter government style operation. We're not anointing a prince. We're not proposing that this individual be elevated by public ANDA. We're not, this is not a voting thing and putting the hands up. We all have to do that. This is an individual that is going to be clearly vetted to ensure that the endeavors that regard the health, safety, and welfare and the needs of the community as driven by all of us to happen. If that's the case, I want somebody that's got this, that's got the heart. And it's very difficult to develop the heart. So I just want to propose, just for your consideration, that we probably have 3 or 4 individuals right here in the building that would meet that requirement. Now, I don't know if they're interested at all, but I think that if you're doing a selection process and you want to incorporate that, and if history has told us anything when we attempted to incorporate local applicants and then a wider search, it gets a little difficult. The dynamics of the interview process, the vetting process change. You know, we could look at something like on the Meet the Parents, where the young lady at the counter looks at the individual and says, "Oh, hi, next." And then after speaking with that individual and getting to know that individual, 10 minutes later, "Oh, hi, next." We can't do that. We cannot look at individuals from Kentucky. I didn't mean to point out Kentucky for any reason, okay, just in case anybody's. Iowa, New York, Detroit. An applicant who wants to retire and come down here to Florida and serve us for a couple of years before they retire. That's my concern. It's a great environment. Why not give the opportunity for an individual, a 2-week period, 1-week period, have HR vet out? We could have interviews. There may be 0 applicants, but at least the opportunity to respect staff of their commitment to this community that perhaps maybe can be elevated. I think that an internal search, an area search, is far more valuable, and the public will benefit far greater and not be disadvantaged by learning curves, by people experiencing new endeavors known as Indian River County. We're not a science experiment, and this is not a college. You don't need to learn and adapt. I understand there's an opportunity for new ideas to come in. You know what? We have a lot of great ideas happening. And I think that we have a lot of things on the ball now that need to be continued. So if that's the case, why not just throw it out there, give the opportunity for a short period of time. Maybe we don't have to go to the national search. Leave that option open. In 1 week, if there's nobody that has come forward for interest that we can interview and assess, then we flip the switch to the wider search. But at least give the opportunity to bring in the individuals who have really been dedicated to this community and know us, know them, know the county, and we're not limiting ourselves. We're just trying to harness esoteric institutional knowledge that you can't earn without a long period of time. You can't understand, you can't purchase that product so rapidly. You might find the very best individual nationally, but did you find somebody that's going to do the work? So, for my input, I would like to see the opportunity, even if you all wanted to limit it to 1 week. Anybody who thinks that they might be a candidate has already talked to their spouses, has already considered thinking about it. Why not give them the opportunity? Okay? And again, I think just by looking at the staff availability, there's probably only 3 or 4 individuals that could meet that line or satisfy that area of time and service. And they've been directors, they've been managers. Perhaps maybe this is a great opportunity to show that we can elevate from within. So if that doesn't work, if there's no applicants, then I suggest that we immediately go to the wider search and utilize the association and let the cards roll. I believe if the association is involved, we're going to get more local people in Florida environment applicants that we could count on serving our community, serving us, to serve the community in the best possible light. So that's my input. I'm not saying we have to eliminate that search, but I think we should try internal, then elevate. It's only a week. That those other options are going to take 4, 5, and 6 months, plus a learning curve. We might be losing 6 months to a year before we really get the mojo going. And I think we can start it sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fleischer. Quick question for Suzanne, if you don't mind. If we go with any of the other more broader search options, there would be nothing that would preclude internal candidates from applying as well. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right. And then we could even say, put a stipulation that, okay, we want you to give us a list of your top 10 plus any internals, just to make sure they get a fair look and we can evaluate them if they're interested. Is that something we can do?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, Commissioners, in my time here, I think we've done a very good job of both promoting from within and then also going outside when we need to. I'm on my 3rd county attorney. When I started here, we had Will Collins, and I think Will was an internal promotion. Was that correct? Mm-hmm. So that was one where Will had been moved up internally, but then we went outside and brought in Alan Palakowicz, who he was here from Indian River County, so he was somewhat of a local person. But then we went outside again when we hired Dylan from Jacksonville. So I would say Jacksonville is a much different cat than Vero Beach. But I think Dylan has done very well. I think I'm on my 3rd utilities director now. When Eric Olson retired, we brought in Vincent Burke. Now, Vincent, again, he was from the area. He worked at Harbor Branch right down the road. But then when we went and we brought in Sean Liskey, he came from Colorado, and I think Sean's doing an excellent job here. Public Works Department, let's see, where's Jim Davis, Chris Moore, Chris, 2, 3. I think I'm on my 4th Public Works Director. We had Jim Davis, and then Chris Moore, and then the other Chris was Chris K for a very short time period. So Chris Moore, Chris Kafer were promotions from within. And then we went out and brought in Rich Spirica from outside, although again, coming from Melbourne, not too far of a trip. Human Resources, I think, Suzanne, you're an outside hire. And where are you from? Brevard County, okay. County Administrator, so as Commissioner Moss pointed out, Mr. Chandler came from outside, but then we promoted from within Joe Baird and then Jason Brown, so I think we've done a good balance there. Information Technology, Dan Russell was an outside hire. I think he's doing very well. Community Development, let's say we got Keating, Bowling, Roland, and Phil. So I'm on my 4th Community Development Director, and those were all internal promotions that I think are working very well. Budget, we had, when Jason first moved into the position, we did have an outside hire from somewhere on the west coast, Lee County or Charlotte, one of those counties. Okay. And then when he left, we promoted from within was Christian, and I think Christian's doing an outstanding job. Parks and Recreation, Beth Powell has been moved up as an internal promotion. So I think this board, over the last years that I've been sitting here, we've done a very good job of, if we think there's a qualified candidate within, that we have promoted that. However, at times we've realized we've had to look outside, and even people coming from as far away as Colorado and such have worked out for our local community. So I think talent rises above all else. So I would be very supportive of utilizing the executive recruitment firm so that we do have the opportunity to get the broadest, widest pool of qualified applicants out there. Would certainly encourage any internal candidates to please feel free to apply. And then, like I said, if we go that route, I'd like a little caveat where we could tell the firm, hey, start with your top 10 plus any internal candidates to make sure that they all get a very fair shake. So that's kind of where I am on the process. Dylan, do we need a formal vote on this? Or I'm kind of hearing 4-1 on the executive recruitment firm. Is that enough, or?
I think it would be helpful to have a vote on, and a motion and a vote on making that move forward.
Commissioner Adams?
Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to make a motion that we move forward with using an executive recruitment firm to manage the process.
I'll second it.
And would that include a directive that a short list plus internal candidates?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so let me get my notes here. We have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Moss, to move forward with an executive recruitment firm with a plus requirement for internal candidates. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment on the motion before us? Good morning, Mr. Paladin.
Good morning. I've listened to what everybody had to say, and I support Commissioner Flesher 100%. I think there's no way you can replace local knowledge and local commitment to the community with somebody coming in from the outside. It's going to take time to learn local politics, who they are. If we promote somebody from within, he knows all the heads of the departments already. He's worked with them already, more likely. He knows everybody. He's more familiar with the area, and he has the feeling of the community that we have. So I think my first choice would be to try and find somebody that would meet the standards that we set and interview from within to see what we have available to us. I think that would be my priority. Because, bringing somebody in, even bringing somebody in from, not talking about Colorado, talking about Miami, talking about even Brevard County. You bring somebody in from out of the area, it's entirely different than Indian River County. The way we do things in Indian River County is much different. I've dealt in other counties in the state, in other states. It's entirely different. And we have a process here that we put together, and we've grown far, far to our advantage compared to other counties. We've done a great job with our county commissioners and with staff and our county administrator and the county attorney. But I think that somebody that has knowledge of local politics, local feeling, local groups, has been here for a while in the county and has been a part of the decision-making in the county, would give us a great asset to hit the ground running and not have a dead down period to where we have to have a learning curve. I don't think we need that. I think we're going strong right now. We're moving forward. There's a lot of demand on this county. A lot of demand for people wanting to move into this county. A lot of builders, developers want to invest in this county. We can't afford any downtime. We have to keep going with the standards that we have and at the pace that we are. So I support Commissioner Fletcher's thought process 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Good morning, Mr. Lohr.
Good morning, Commissioners. Darrell Lohr for the record. I will tell you, in the last several weeks, I've been visiting with department heads. In fact, I have meetings this afternoon and Wednesday and Thursday. My view has changed significantly from what I had heard on the street about different things in different areas. Friends, I can tell you that there is talent in this building. I can see where there's been leadership driven ways that those department heads are grooming other below them. I can tell you as a great leader, that is probably your number one priority, is to have your number 2 man, your number 3 man groomed to take your position. Having said that, I would stick with the statewide search to include any in-house folks. That's just how I feel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Good morning.
Good morning. Wilfred Hart, 617 19th Place Southwest, Vero Beach, Florida. I'm not a little, but I'm a lot selfish on this. I've grown to love Mr. Brown over there, and so it's going to hurt my heart to see him leave. But I believe that Commissioner Fletcher and Mr. Lohr, the thing that they said, that we ought to look internally right here, at least for the short period of time, and let's determine whether or not some of the folks in this room here can fit the bill. The things that this commission, as well as this county administrator and this county attorney, have worked very well together, and I think that this county administrator here have allowed his people to go out and be themselves and navigate and learn the system. And so it just, in my opinion, I come from the retail world where we were known for promoting from within. And I think that's what we ought to do here, at least for the short period of time. And if it doesn't work out, then we still have that opportunity to expand.
Thank you. Anyone else? Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Peter. For the record, Bob McParland, City of Sebastian. This is, again, kind of echoing Mr. Hart. I hate to see Jason leave. He's going to be a tough act to follow, but it's like Forrest Gump said, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know until you bite into it. If you get somebody from out, there is a lot of talent in this building, a lot of great department heads. And if you do get somebody from out, I don't want to say that Indian River County is weird, because I do cover the other 3 counties. Yeah. But Indian River County is definitely different. That takes something to know. But again, the talent in this building, you could bring somebody from outside, and the talent rises to the top. And again, you're just looking for a manager to manage the situation. What I would be concerned about is the time frame that you're looking at right now. Jason's leaving the end of the year. That's pretty, to have somebody in place by that time is going to be hard with all the holidays coming up. You might want to look, I don't know, I hate to do this, I didn't talk, maybe Dylan as an interim county administrator, because you want to take your time with this. This is an important decision to make. Like Mr. Paladin referenced, there's a lot of developers who want to come in here, but you want to take your time with this decision. But there is a lot of great talent here, and I don't see what it hurts looking outside, but then again, vetting that person fully. And again, it's not hard to manage the great talent that's in here. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Bob. Anyone else? Okay, so we do have the motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Moss, to move forward with the executive recruitment firm with a plus caveat. All in favor of the motion signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner Flesher opposed. Again, a question for Suzanne. Commissioner Adams, you brought up the salary range. Suzanne, is this something we should talk about out in public so it's, everybody knows what numbers we're talking about? Or should we all talk to you individually and not have the numbers thrown out and about?
Right. I can provide you some salary information that my staff has been gathering, recent salary information. Then we also have some 2021 survey information that I can send it to you individually just so you can get a gauge. We didn't get as granular as what you had worked on because there's a lot of differences between some of the places that might have the same budget and some of the same departments and those types of things, but regionally they may be very different. So there's a lot of different things to consider. I don't think it's necessarily a public discussion. I think a lot of the advertisements are dependent on qualifications and experience, but I would provide whatever you need.
So you could give us that information and then each individual commissioner can meet with you and say, okay, I think I'd be comfortable in this range or something, at least kind of give you some guidelines of where we would be?
I'm just a little bit nervous about that approach.
Okay.
So maybe if the board wants to direct Suzanne just to kind of put together a range
Yes.
and just let the board know, hey, this seems to be the appropriate range, that might be the better way to go. Just from a sunshine law perspective, I think that will probably be the right way to go.
Are you comfortable with me providing you with the salary information?
Oh, yeah, you can
Data.
provide all the information to the
Data.
board. What
Yes.
I didn't want to have happen is commission input, and then you're kind of trying to sift through different commission input in that. So I think the information to the board is very important.
Okay.
Okay. So then, commissioners, are we in agreement that we'll just direct Suzanne to internally develop a salary range based on the information she has, and then we'll, as it comes back to us in another public hearing, we can then decide the actual number? Is everybody good with that? Okay. Then the other, next would be what kind of qualifications we're looking for. I don't know how detailed you want us to get. I think we can do some broad outlines, but why don't we go ahead and start on the other end here with Commissioner Flesher.
Well, obviously, some of the qualifications would be limited by the selection process that I would feel necessary. Again, some of them I've already mentioned about relationship to community and understanding in our environment and where we've been and where we've gone. I just think that adds up to a whole lot more than y'all are considering. I just, we have to move forward. I just think we have so much going on in this county right now, and I think it's a shortcoming to extend this 6 months and then an additional learning curve time. I have a fear that some might take advantage of this.
Okay. Commissioner Ehrman, did you have any things you'd like to see in a candidate?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. And Commissioner Flusher, I hear you loud and clear, and we are different in any River County Special. I think by opening it up and allowing internal candidates to apply and putting a sticker on those internal candidates to make sure they get through it, I think we can vet and find the best person. It's going to inherently fall on whoever gets the job, whether they have institutional knowledge or not. But let's say they don't, we hire somebody from out of town. It's our job as commissioners, with Commissioner O'Brien won't be here, but maybe we can recruit him to be a consultant or something to help our new commissioner and educate him to the ways of any River County, because if the county administrator fails, it's our failure. It's not the county administrator's failure. It's what we as commissioners were elected to do and how we're going to do it, and to make sure that this county is run properly. It falls upon us, not necessarily as much as the county administrator, because he and the county attorney work for us, and if they fail, we failed. And it's not my intention to ever bring anybody in here that I'm not going to give them the chance to succeed. So either way, I think we're on a good path with this, and I don't disagree with what you said, but I think we have to give the citizens what they want and cast a wide net and give maybe have somebody look at it with a different perspective, even though we are in River County and we are unique. But it's going to fall upon us to make sure that person learns no matter who it is. Of course, I want to see somebody that's a strong leader. Leadership is everything. I want the guy that's going to be first on the helicopter and first off, as we know in a few movies we've seen. So that's important. Somebody that's willing to dive deep and take a risk and do what's best for the county as a whole. Somebody that has a good finance background, somebody that has understands growth. I mean, you can't ask somebody. I don't think we'll ever find the person that could be exceptional in every aspect of it. But I want them to have a good knowledge in all those aspects, and I want them to have some experience. Would be a good thing. Not necessarily maybe as a county administrator, or a city manager, but maybe somebody that's been a department head and has a good understanding, or served as assistant county administrator or assistant or city manager or something like that. I think there's, I think for us to tell Suzanne's probably kind of silly. Tell her what we want, because she probably knows with Jason's input, and I would hope that you would give input on that, on what we want to see in a county administrator. But of course, I would love them to have experience and be perfect in everything. But that person probably doesn't exist, and we probably got as close as we could get. But that's kind of a tough call. But I think somebody that's a good, strong leader, that's on an even keel, that is got a good personality, gets along with people well, is open to ideas and suggestions from not only commission but from those department heads, and has a good background in all aspects of government, city, county, state, federal government, all those type of things. And I think that it falls upon us to do that. I think between the five of us and the four of us and Commissioner-elect Laura, I think we can find the right person. I am confident that the county will not, if we are going to be a 4 or 5 month before we get a new administrator, I can promise you that this county services and what we do will not fail.
Okay. Very good. Commissioner Adams.
Sure, thank you. So I do think that we need to give Suzanne direction, because Suzanne is going to reach out to the firm that'll be running this, and they're going to ask, what kind of candidate are you looking for? And I think ultimately it's not what kind of candidate Suzanne or Jason want, it's what kind of candidate we as the commission want. So that input needs to come from us. I do also want to mention that I've heard a lot of him, he, that guy. I would remind everybody that maybe we need to get our pronouns in order, and we might end up with a she, a her, or a gal. And I think, again, that just wanted to throw that out there, and I would obviously encourage that. As far as what I would like to see in the next administrator, I do think that we have been very lucky with the administrator that we've had in the past and currently. I think that will be a big set of shoes to fill. But since we do have this opportunity, I would like to see somebody with a really good financial background. I would like to see somebody with experience. One of the things that has set Indian River apart and allowed us to do the things that we have been able to do is our strong budgeting, our understanding that you have to have some reserves, but you also have to spend those monies and move those projects forward. catching up, making sure the maintenance things are being taken care of, so we aren't getting ourselves in a situation where we're behind the 8 ball on that. So a strong financial background and experience, experience in utilities and infrastructure. There are some counties and some cities where applicants may be coming from where they don't have those types of utilities. You know, we run our own landfill. A lot of places contract that out. So I think somebody that has experience in infrastructure and multiple different types of that. And then you have your roads and your bridges and those types of things and those projects that we do internally that I think there's some experience there. I've heard it from the other commissioners, but I will reiterate it. I think somebody that has development experience, that has worked on large and small scale projects within their communities, that can understand those needs of a growing community and how we might need to move that forward. We're in the middle of a visioning process. So I would like somebody that can kind of hit the ground running with those concepts. I think it's very important that the next person have human resources experience. We just approved the contract negotiation with the fire union, and we will have those ongoing issues and those ongoing needs to negotiate. So I think it's very important that there are strong HR skills there. And then lastly, I think technology. You know, technology is changing. We've done some technology upgrades within our utilities department. We're doing broadband and technology upgrades across the county with our IT, with fiber. And the way technology is going, it can make our life easier. If we don't understand it, it can make it a lot more difficult. So I think having somebody with that technology background that understands what's kind of coming down the pipes in relationship to that and how it's regulated and how we need to interact with it as a government would be important. So those are kind of my top list of things I would like to see. It's probably a very broad list, so I don't know how helpful that is, but that's kind of what I would be looking for. But I do have a question for you. In this process, what type of background check or discipline records checking occurs? What type of review on that level is happening with these applicants?
So I did want to provide you with some additional information for your consideration when you, and it may answer a lot of the questions as we move forward. You mentioned support for the executive recruitment firm. There are a number of different agencies that are out there that could provide this service to you, that you could enter into an agreement with to provide this service. And part of that service does include developing a recruitment brochure, meeting with you and determining what your skill set is that you're looking for. I have a couple of proposals that I just received preliminarily in preparation for this. So, and they do include background reports. They do include reference checks, social media presence. So it's really quite an extensive search that would, I think, address all the concerns that you might have. And you'd have an opportunity to say, this is what's important to us. So if you would authorize me to, I can request and work with purchasing to go out for a proposal and ask for executive recruitment firms to submit proposals to us for the purpose of recruiting a county administrator. I don't know what that process would be, or I could just directly solicit proposals on your behalf and bring them back to you so that you could make a determination on which executive recruitment firm you wanted to work with who could provide the services that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, I think we could work and bring back a recommendation of a firm to the board.
Yeah, I don't
Because I'm worried about delaying the process.
I don't want to drag this out longer. I think if you go out for RFP and all that stuff, and I know there's piggyback contracts and stuff I'm sure we can take advantage of.
Yes.
These amounts are under my authority to
Right.
award, so we can.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that you were aware that there are a number of different firms.
I just want to make sure that whatever firm we do use has that background and disciplinary personnel kind of file check, because I've seen in other jurisdictions where things come up afterwards and then there's an issue.
Either one of the two proposals that we've received so far definitely include that component.
Yeah, I think the two that we have received, and I think any of the experienced firms that have done city manager, county administrator type searches would be well versed in that, and we would be ensuring that process was followed, because you know there's the background checks, there's the social media, there's reference checks, there's all those types of things that would need to happen to make sure that there's not a surprise at some point down the road.
Thank you.
So we will come back with a firm that we're comfortable with, can carry out all the things that you've mentioned here are important to you.
And then I assume they will come and talk to us and go through what their process is, so,
Yes.
and the time frame, and we'll have a better understanding
Yes.
of the steps, public interviews, private interviews, whatever those may be, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Okay.
Vice Chair Ehrman had one quick question, then we'll get to Commissioner Moss's comments.
Ken, what you said and what Jason said, can we still expedite this part of the process a little more than we would usually in the normal RFPs and stuff?
Yeah, I think what we can do, I've got $35,000 is kind of the upper limit. I've got authority to go higher than that. And so what I could do, if you want to just delegate this to us, we can go out there and make a selection and go ahead and get them hitting the ground running, because I think time is of the essence here. So we don't want to drag, the process out, and I think we can make that, and we can obviously, report back to the board on what we've done as well. Or we could bring back our recommended proposal to the board if you would like.
But we want to hear what Commissioner Moss says first, and then we can, if we need to vote on that, we can do that.
Commissioner Moss?
Okay, thank you. Well, I won't reiterate all the many traits and skills that have already been mentioned. I think they're all important. I'll just highlight the few that are especially important to me. One is, given the context, and Commissioner Adams mentioned it, of the visioning process, and I stated this earlier on, I'm looking for someone who is a visionary, who can help us identify ways to implement the visioning process that we spend so much time and energy on with the community, with input from the community. So I'd like someone who's able to think along that line and come up with suggestions for ways to implement it. Someone who's preferably, he or she, a visionary, him or herself. And I'm also thinking about, and this has been mentioned, social skills are really important. I think they're very much underestimated in their importance, but unfortunately, when someone doesn't, if they're lacking or not as strong perhaps as they should be, my concern is I want someone with very strong social skills, not only, as was previously mentioned, to interact with the unions, but also just to interact with the cities and towns in the county. Not only in a functional way, like, I have to, try to avoid lawsuits in the future or that kind of thing. But I often wonder, are we missing opportunities, to create a synergy, with the cities and towns. So I'd like someone who would consider that possibility, and hopefully has the qualities that would lend themselves to creating that kind of synergy. And last but hardly least, and it's not very interesting, I've already mentioned it, is infrastructure. If someone could have that capability, he or she, I don't know, maybe even an engineering background or something like that. Well, you still have to be strong in finances and all the rest of it, I understand. But I think that will become more and more crucial in the future of this county, to be able to not only maintain, but maximize how we are handling our infrastructure requirements. And that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And then Suzanne, just probably one of my top things I'd look for would be a very strong financial background. I think probably the most critical thing we do every year is our budget and keeping our finances in shape and being strong financially. So I think a good, strong financial background will be critical from my point of view. I'd also be looking for someone who not quite ready to retire in a year or two, but someone looking for kind of their end place they want to be. I don't really want somebody who's young and up and coming and looking as a stepping stone. that they just want to be here for a couple, 3 years to build a resume and then move on again. I think I'd like someone a little bit, not real young, not real old, but somewhere in the middle, who has experience, maturity, but says, yeah, I want to come to Indian River and spend my last 15 years here as county administrator. Demonstrated leadership skills. I think several people have mentioned how good our department heads are, and I agree 100%. And I agree a lot with what Mr. Laura said about, to me, a good leader is someone that makes your other folks look better than you, so that you want to raise them up, and that it should be taken, as a positive sign if some of those people get hired off to higher jobs, because that administrator has done a good job of pushing them to get better, pushing them to reach higher. And so I think that's the leadership we need here, someone that can come in with all of our different department heads and encourage them, motivate them, but then kind of say, okay, I'm getting out of your way, here's your job and you're going to do it, and move forward with that. Someone with pretty thick skin, okay? This is not an easy job, okay? It's a very high, stressful job, and a lot of times the county administrator has to make hard, difficult decisions, and you need someone that can be able to make those decisions for the betterment of the county. In my mind, two good examples were when Mr. Baird was here and we had the Great Recession, and we were cutting our budget year after year after year. And, the first year we closed off some open positions that we hadn't filled, so those were kind of easy budget cuts. The next year you kind of said, well, this is a good way to kind of trim some of the dead wood off the tree. Not as difficult, but that third year, when you're having to cut people you really want to keep, those are hard decisions. And in still a fairly small town like Vero, that county administrator going out to dinner or whatnot, going out to a street fair or something, he's going to run into some of those people. And so they have to be able to make those difficult jobs. Jason had to go through the whole pandemic thing and a lot of difficult decisions there. So whoever he or she may be, I think they have to have really good, broad, strong shoulders to be able to handle the stress that this job entails. So I think that's about it. I do think we have a great staff here, a great department head, so we just need someone that can be a leader and get those department heads and motivate them and just push them to keep doing what they're doing so well, and keep everybody going that way. So that's what I'd look for. So I hope all that helps.
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, so we covered how we're going to search. Suzanne is going to put together a salary range to go out. We've highlighted what we are looking for. I think that's about it, or?
I assume we need a motion to give the county administrator the authority to move ahead on this search under his purview.
If that was a motion, I'll be glad to second it. And between Jason and Dylan and Suzanne, you all have enough guidance for Vice Chair Ehrman's motion?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, what I heard was, and I'm glad asked about that. What I heard was Jason's got the authority. We're going to just keep with that it's under 75,000. Jason, just go hire a firm under our purchasing policy and go forward. If the board would like it to go back, we just need to understand that. So I heard the motion is Jason, just go forward.
Are you good with that? And I'm good with that.
It's under his purview, yep.
Okay. All right. Is there anyone from the audience who wishes to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. And then the only other thing I jotted down, we heard it mentioned quite a few times that going down this path may be a 4 or 5 month process. Did the board want to discuss an interim county administrator at this point, or save that for a later date?
Well, you're
I hear.
retiring.
Well, he can't be a lobbyist, and he can't represent anybody before us, but there's no preclusion about
It could work for us.
interim county administrator. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. Sounds like a personal decision and discussion at home. So we might want to revisit this at a later date.
Well, to be honest, I have considered it, Commissioner Adams, to your question, and Commissioner Flesher, to your comment, I have spoken to Susan.
Well, you should.
It was brought up to me.
So just from a technical point of view, and I have talked to Human Resources on this, I have a termination date now with the Florida retirement system. That's a drop dead thing. If that passes, then I'm prohibited from doing anything with a FRS company. But I can rescind that termination date and then would be eligible to be hired as an interim county administrator for a short time period and still be okay with FRS. Is that's correct? Okay. I can give you a couple reasons why it might make sense to some of you all. One, obviously, I've been here for 16 years. I think I have a pretty good knowledge of Indian River County and the institutional knowledge. Second, I think I have a very good relationship with the department heads that we have. And obviously, if we did go down this path, I would need to lean on them heavily. I think timing-wise, we might start edging into some budget things that have to happen, in March or April. But I'm very confident that Kristen would be able to help with that and move it forward. And then I think one of the most important things in my mind is that if we're going to do a national search, we want to attract the best candidates we can. And I think that if you have an interim county administrator who has no interest in the job full-time, and I have no interest in getting divorced anytime soon, so I would have no interest in the job full-time, then the applicants would look at it and say, yeah, it really is an open, it is an open position, and they're doing a real search, and so they might be willing to apply, and so we would get a good pool of candidates. So, it's up to the board. Obviously, I can't vote or do anything on this if you all decide you wanted to go that way, because it would, what's the word, Dylan, imbibe a special something to me or whatever? Or
We'll just say conflict of interest. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a conflict of interest on the issue.
Close enough. So it'd be up to the commission. I don't know, y'all want to think about it and come back next week. I will tell you, though, if y'all want to go down this road, one, I'd be honored and be a privilege to do it. But secondly, I do have a drop dead coming up date fairly soon. And so we would need to know probably by next week, I'm thinking, Suzanne, so that we can let FRS know to rescind my termination date. So that's kind of the status of that, and I'll leave it open to any comment from the commissioners.
No, Mr. Chairman, when you started speaking about all of the plus sides, it kind of was like, I think you were bringing out how I felt about the original motion on the selection process. You fit all those criteria that I was trying to point out. Just wanted to throw it out there. It felt good that you think so much about what this place means to all of us, what this place means to the community, what Indian River is all about. I really appreciate those sentiments. I mean, there is, I brought the discussion up because Vice Chairman Ehrman said that, you know, maybe you can come in back as a consultant, which there is a prohibition, and, or a representative to help us in certain ways, or consult. You know that's, we're not allowed to do that for at least 2 years, I believe. We can't get involved with any county business. This kind of like is a hybrid of it. I'm, as one, would like a week to think about it as well, and not make that firm decision. I do feel that something that you did say that, you know, when somebody else is coming to look at this place and looking at a career path, they'll say, well, they already have somebody internal that's there, and, you know, maybe it's somebody from this department or that department, or the deputy. You know, are they applicants? Yeah, and that's the dynamics I was talking about. Wanted to peel that off beforehand. But if that's the case, I would prefer to think about this and bring it up at next meeting to see who we should appoint as an interim, and perhaps, you know, if Jason wants to change his date or stay where he's at, and maybe there'd be a nice transition of a learning experience. There's a number of decisions that could or would be made. Other than the most important one was the one that you made at home.
Commissioner Adams, you had a comment?
Sure. Well, I was halfway joking, but now that you said that you were into it, I don't think that's really a bad idea, to be honest with you, as it gives, you will have rolled off in a couple weeks. That gives like a month and a half to kind of get acclimated before Jason moves on. And then we have somebody squiring us through the selection process, which seems like it should be done sometime towards the end of February-ish, maybe March, to kind of maintain that status quo. I know all staff is really busy with a lot of things they have going on, so I do have some concerns about adding extra duties to existing staff and still trying to get the production level, because I know we're all just under stress with everything else going on. So honestly, it sounds very enticing to me at this point. So I do recognize Commissioner Flesher's want to think about it for a week, and since this is something that's kind of just come up, I have no problem with that. I just think that we do need to decide one way or another. So however this needs to be put on the agenda for discussion next week, whether it ends up being Commissioner O'Brien or somebody else's name in that discussion, I think we just need to have a path forward for everybody, for the county stability, and be clear about that.
Yeah, I think we can.
Okay.
If that's what the way the board wants to.
Vice Chairman?
Dylan, can I interview him before he leaves? As his position or is that violating the Sunshine Law? Because I'm going to interview him.
Well, you can start asking him questions right now.
I have to think about it. I got some tough ones.
You know, one benefit is it could be college game day every Tuesday, you know?
That's true.
We'll definitely have theme song.
That's a no.
Commissioner Moss, did you have any comments?
Yeah, so, you know, I haven't worked with you as long as some of my colleagues, but I love it that it's a surprise ending, you know? I mean, you know, that it's unexpected, but not unwelcome. And thank you. Thank you for.
Well, then we will just leave it then that Jason will bring back an item under county administrative matters, and then we'll just kind of see what the board's pleasure is at that point in time. Is that, and Suzanne, you good with that? And we're all, okay.
Consensus, all five, we'll
Bring something back.
I think, yeah, just,
That is just a very short item, have a
yeah,
discussion on.
I think that's good.
discussion on who should be the
An interim.
interim?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I think we've covered everything on Jason's matter there for the transition planning. So, okay. Commissioners, I don't know, Suzanne, y'all want to take a quick break or move right into the health clinic discussion?
We could take a quick break, can't we? 5 minutes?
Whatever you want, your choice.
All right, why don't we do a real short, just a 5-minute break, okay? Okay. we'll bring the meeting back to order. We now move on to departmental matters, human resources, final ranking of firms and authorization to negotiate for employee health clinic. And Suzanne.
Well, this is exciting for me. What we have is a process that we went through to go out for RFP for the clinic. We had a group of committee members comprised of myself, David Rattray, the fire chief, Duke Hawkins, the assistant utility operations manager, Rich Spirka, public works director, Betsy Stanger, library director, Cynthia Stanton, risk manager, Kristen Daniels, budget director, Denise Sleeman, public works administrative coordinator. And we came together after we received all of the RFPs. You'll see that we received 6 RFPs. Each vendor, it was a lot of information, and it took a while to go through it. And as we went through it, we learned a lot. And we came together as a committee, and we went through our initial rankings that we had independently scored. And it was really interesting how those rankings came out, because through that process, we came up with the top 2 firms independently, but yet collectively through that meeting. And it was Everside Health and Care ATC. And through that process, we noticed that each vendor had kind of submitted a different staffing model and those kinds of things. And with Lockton's assistance, they went through and evaluated and took us through a discussion process of what might make sense for us. And we landed on a staffing model that seemed to make very good sense for us. And we went back to the vendors, Everside and Care ATC, and asked them to price it out. So you'll see in the agenda item what that pricing model is on page 2 of the agenda item. It's 1 nurse practitioner and 2 medical assistants. And you'll see how close Everside and Care ATC were when you look at a cost per clinic hour ongoing. They're really comparable. And I can tell you through the process, both vendors, we felt confident, the committee did, that either vendor would serve us very, very well. And one of the things that we also talked about through the process was, you may remember when I came back to you and spoke about this last time, we looked at eligibility as maybe starting off with just all eligible employees, and then maybe year 2 or year 3 expanding it to spouses and dependents. Well, after we went through this process, we saw that there would be really good value in starting off with open eligibility for anyone under the plan, to include the spouses, the children over the age of 2. And there's multiple reasons for that, but basically it's a meeting the needs of our workforce, young families, people where it's a little bit difficult sometimes for some folks starting out to get into the doctor, to take off time from work. So the convenience of being able to serve the population in that manner with an employee clinic was something that we were pretty comfortable on as a group. So we received these additional proposals on the staffing model. We had some other questions, and we came back together as a committee, and the ranking was the same. So Everside was number 1, and Care ATC was number 2. And what we're asking for today is approval of that ranking that the committee went through. And then we're also asking for approval to proceed with negotiating an agreement, authorizing the county administrator to sign a non-disclosure agreement after approval by the county attorney, authorize Lockton to proceed with negotiating an agreement with Everside, which would be presented to the board for approval after consultation with the county administrator and review by the county attorney for legal sufficiency, and approve our recommended staffing model of the 40-hour per week, 1 nurse practitioner, 2 medical assistants, open access for that. But when I say that's our request, this is now the beginning of the work that you spoke about earlier, Commissioner Adams, that this is a pretty substantial project, a very exciting project. I think it's going to really help us along the way with meeting the needs of our population, our employees, and maintaining health and reducing cost over time because we are focusing on wellness and we are addressing those medical needs that may come up in managing situations. And so with that, I will answer any questions that you might have.
Commissioners, any questions of Suzanne? Suzanne, I got a couple. Just one, the staffing level, the nurse practitioner, and then 2 medical assistants.
Yes.
Will the medical assistants also be doing the administrative work, or is there going to be a 4th person as an administrator?
No, they'll work the front and then go back and do the medical assistant part of it. So you'll have that rhythm and flow. It's not just somebody sitting at a desk. They're actually an integral part of the operation of the clinic.
Okay. And then the other thing, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, on the list of services to be offered, the nurse practitioner can write prescriptions.
Yes.
So that if you go in with a chest infection or something, they can write antibiotics or other things. And some of your standard stuff, like I think you said diabetes, scripts and things like that, that they can handle all that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So the one thing also I had brought up is radiology, x-rays. I think that's one thing that a lot of people have a need for that, you know, if they fall at home or something and they need an x-ray. And I know my wife is signed up through the school district's program, and she went to their health clinic, and they have a relationship with one of the radiologies to where she could go get an x-ray and not have to pay for it. I think that'd be something maybe important to add into what we do here. I think, and maybe not right off the bat, but I think sooner than not, I think just an x-ray is something that, you know, you probably can't get in to see an orthopedic guy for weeks, so you'd end up going to the emergency room to get an x-ray because your wrist is fractured because you fell out of a tree. So I think the radiology would be a key thing to add in there if possible, or some type of relation. And I think you said that'd be something the clinic would work out with a radiology firm. Is that correct?
Right. Everside would be able to address whatever needs we determined were needed for our clinic. We would have communication with them, ongoing communication, and if there was a service that needed to be added or a relationship that needed to be established so that people could, as an extension of the clinic, maybe go to another facility, get the imaging done, it's at no cost, still through the clinic. They call them pass-through expenses.
Right, okay. Okay, I just think that would be pretty, a good thing to have with the clinic as well, so. Okay, so that was the only thing I had. Commissioner Moss?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With regard to the analysis performed by Lockton with regard to savings,
Yes.
was that based on the survey that was conducted on May 11th, 2021, on that survey? Because that was, I found it not particularly encouraging overall. I revisited it the other day. And one of the questions, I'll just give you an example. This was asked of the employees: how likely are you to visit an employer clinic to treat your minor illnesses? And only a little over half, 58.5%, said very likely, and 29.75% said would consider, which is, you know, very non-committal. And then when it came to the chronic conditions, the same question was asked regarding chronic conditions. It was only 39.04% would be very likely to. So the numbers are not that high. So I was wondering, was there any additional information? Is that where we
Yes.
were with it? I mean, what?
Actually, the survey was just more gauging the temperature for the employees, you know, the workforce.
Right.
Are you interested?
Are you going to use it?
And,
Yes.
and because the employees, many of them don't have an idea of what to expect with a clinic, although the percentages may from someone's perspective appear low, I was kind of encouraged by them because oftentimes there's a real strong hesitancy for an employer-sponsored clinic. But what I was so pleased about as we went through the process with Everside is this is what they do, and they do very well with engagement and making that clinic environment one that's warm and welcoming to people who want to come and be there and have a good experience. That's what they do very well, and in fact, some of their guarantees are tied to that metric of engagement. They have very strong expectations of themselves for engagement. But going back to answer your question on the savings that was identified in the agenda item, that actually came from Locked In, and that's based on actual claims data over a period of time for people who went to facilities that could have been diverted to a clinic if we had a clinic. And Locked In is very conservative in their estimates. They are, so their estimate of an approximate savings is a very low estimate. That's just like entry level, with building up as we encourage more people to come to the clinic and divert the care to the clinic so that we can deliver it in not only a cost-effective manner, but I think a more meaningful manner, because the provider that's going to be there is going to be our provider who is listening to the concerns of the employee and is taking the time more so than might be in another type of a setting. So the data actually came from claims data and was based on a realistic experience that we had, that then said if we divert it to the clinic, we could save this much money.
Okay, so it's generalized data. It doesn't
Yes.
pertain to our employees.
No, it's our employees. It's our claims data.
Oh, I see, okay.
Yes,
That's
actually,
what
they
I'm
went
trying
back to all the
discern.
plans, claims experience, pulled out any claim that could be diverted, and then applied a percentage to it and said, you know, starting off low diversion, this is what you could expect to save, and then as you increase utilization, it'll go more and more.
Okay.
And those numbers were 20 to 30% diversion, so it's kind of in the range of
Yes.
of what the survey said. So we're not assuming 75% of the people are going to go. Those numbers are based on a 20 to 30%
Exactly.
diversion. So pretty conservative estimate.
I was going to say, I think those are initial conservative estimates, but I think once you see this come to fruition, and I'll mention, we've had several discussion points, agenda items on this. This didn't just May 21st, and here we are today. But once it gets going, I mean, you're going to see a lot of people that don't have primary care homes, that wait till they have an emergency and either go to the emergency room, which drives the cost up astronomically, or goes to an urgent care facility, which again is driving the cost up astronomically. And those two situations are not set up to get to the root of whatever's causing their problem in the first place. Whereas a clinic and a wellness clinic and having a doctor home or a medical home for yourself and your family addresses that wellness aspect of what is causing your conditions that you keep just kind of putting a Band-Aid on by going to the urgent care. I think we are in the process, we have multiple openings in multiple departments across the board, and I think something like this is an easy way to add to our benefits package too, when we're talking about recruitment.
Yes.
So if you are coming into the community, you don't have to go through the process of trying to vet and find specialists and doctors or whatever. You can kind of come here and then go from there. But I think it's great. I thank you for bringing this forward. I think this kind of finalizes the process. And then I guess, like you said, the real work begins of getting it done and in action. But this is the last administrative part for us to help to move it forward, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
I just have one other question. Is there, I know we'll get a few years into it if we approve it, but is there a year when it would become self-funding in effect, that it would not be a cost?
Well, it's interesting. It's every community's experience, every employer's experience is a little bit different as far as what that timing is. So there are clinics that are self-sustaining because they do have the utilization and they have prevented their insurance costs from increasing because they implemented a clinic. And There's a town in Wisconsin, and a county in Wisconsin, in fact, that they have their story where they they thought they would do a 2-to-1 return on their clinic, and it turns out it's like a 10-to-1 for them based on what they were able to accomplish. And they partnered with Everside to get it done, and they have some interesting employee stories of how their clinic impacted individual lives personally to the point where people had dropped 80 pounds, improved all of their blood pressure, just some really neat personal experiences that people had as a result of the employer sponsored clinic. So yes, there is that potential there.
Okay, but we're not projecting a year, like year 4 or year 5.
No, because it really has to do with how you set up the clinic and meet the needs of your workforce. And we'll be able to, they'll be giving us reports, we'll be able to analyze and assess it. Lockton will partner with us to develop, savings reports on had this gone through the health plan versus through the clinic. There's some other savings, lost time, when you think about many families that have to take a day off to get to the doctor, or half a day off, those kinds of things. When you have a clinic that is set up to be able to get you in either same day or next day, and you can it's not too far down the road, just some real conveniences and some lost time savings that we would experience as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chairman, workman's comp issues and stuff will go here initially?
So those are the types of things that we'll look at down the road. I mean, initial first, I cut myself, go to the clinic, get it looked at kind of a thing. But as far as being the place that you go for your workers' comp care, that would enter into a realm that might work against you on the wellness side of things. We would just have to carefully consider whether it made sense and met our expectations for cost savings over time.
That was just one question I had. This has been, we've talked about this since I've been here, and I was talked about it even before I was a commissioner. I think it's, I'm sorry, I think it's definitely a plus, and without a doubt, I think it's something we need to do, and the success is going to be based on the use, without a doubt. With the use of the employees, how we as administrators and commissioners and department heads, how we project it, how we sell it, the location, which I talked to Jason briefly. It sounds like y'all are working on a great location to give it some credibility, and that's really what it's going to take, because we all know, I'll say it, the employees might be a little skeptical at first on, what is this, but I think that we can sell it and give it the credibility I think it deserves. I think it'll be a success, and it very well may pay for itself in the future. But it's all based on use.
Yes.
So, good job, really good job.
Well, Commissioners, staff has kind of a lengthy recommendation. Is there a
Would
motion?
be happy to move staff's recommendation. Without
We have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Flesher to approve the recommendation as presented in the staff item. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to comment on the motion before us? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Commissioners, with your indulgence, I'd like to insert a quick announcement that Commissioner Adams brought to my attention, so there's no opposition. Commissioner Adams.
Yeah, I just want to remind everybody that this weekend is the clam bake, the 4th, 5th, and 6th? Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Sebastian. 4th, 5th, and 6th. So come on out. It'll be fun times. It's a huge event, and all proceeds go to community organizations. Great time.
And is it true Vice Mayor Jones is in the dunk tank this year?
It is now.
Wednesday. Was there a motion to have that happen? Okay, well, thank you for that, Commissioner Adams, for bringing that to our attention. Moving on to Public Works, 66th Avenue Phase 1B, acceptance of relocating FPL transmission structures estimate. Mr. Spirica, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Phase 1B is the second phase of 66th Avenue from basically 69th Street up to 85th Street, County Road 510. The FDOT, we got over $7 million from FDOT on this project. And we are moving forward with the advertisement of the project toward the end of the year, with construction to begin in March of 2023. As part of that, FPL needs to relocate some transmission poles. We've been working with FPL for over 2 years to get them on board to remove these poles. We finally have gotten their attention. In June, we sent them a check for $173,000 so they could start the design and get us a plan so that they could relocate the poles within the right of way that we got. Moving forward with this, they provided that. We've worked out all the constructability issues. FPL has now asked that we authorize or agree to the estimated $1.9 million that they provided us in the June letter. In order to do that, we felt it was necessary to come to the board and ask the board to authorize that expenditure because of the fact of one of the reasons right now is that we're moving forward and concrete poles are 6 months for ordering. So FPL had reached out to us and said, hey, if you can get your board to agree to this, we'll go ahead and order the poles, and then we'll close up the paperwork at a later date. We thought this was very nice of them. We've been working with them to get this moving. So with that, staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners approve the acknowledgement of the preliminary estimate of $1,975,800 to FPL that will allow FPL to finalize the design and the ability to order materials to meet the county's construction schedule of 66th Avenue widening Phase 1B from 69th Street to State Road 510, or County Road 510, 85th Street, and have the chair execute the same.
Thank you. Any questions of staff?
Move staff recommendation.
We have a motion from Commissioner Flesher. Was there a second?
Second.
Right. Vice Chair Ehrman. Anyone from the audience wish to discuss on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Second item, Florida Department of Transportation Maintenance Memorandum of Agreement for Oslo Road and I-95 Interchange Construction Financial Project. Mr. Spirica.
I'm back. What we have here is basically a maintenance memorandum of understanding. So FDOT has taken on a $72 million project to provide an interchange at Oslo Road. As part of that, it's a requirement that the maintenance authority put a resolution together accepting maintenance when this is complete. So that's basically what you have before you today, is that they understand they'll build it, they'll fund it, and then at the end of the day, we will accept it for maintenance. That's the key right here, and it is a requirement for federal funding. That's why we're before you today. With that, once the project is complete, we will include the budget necessary in the road and bridge budget to maintain the roadway as part of our roadway infrastructure.
Thank you.
Staff recommends the Board of County Commissioners approve and authorizing resolution for acceptance of the MMOA and authorize the chair to sign the same.
Move
Commissioner
approval.
Adams had made a motion, and I'll second it to approve it. Any discussion? Anyone from the audience? All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries 5-0. And the third item is another.
Same thing for the same project, basically,
Ditto.
right? All right, I move approval.
Second. We have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Commissioner Flesher to approve. Any discussion? Any comments? Seeing none, all in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioners' matters. Vice Chairman Joe Ehrman, discussion of traffic signal cabinet wraps. Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. This is going to be something that we're going to talk about that's not talking about a county administrator. We're not talking about anything heavy. We're going to talk about something
Pretty
light
controversial,
and
I
airy
think,
and
here, yeah.
fun. But I need y'all's approval to move forward on this. As you know, you've probably all seen them. I'm going to show you some examples in a minute and give you some other information. But traffic signal wraps. Everybody knows what those are, and I'll show you a picture in just a minute. But neighboring counties and municipalities have selected to wrap their traffic signal wraps over the years to kind of fit, you know, give it you don't see a metal box there. You see something nice on it. Normally it's reserved for stuff like nature or local scenes, historic scenes and stuff like that. You know, and there are vinyl graphics that go on these boxes that are applied directly to the boxes, and they go on unpainted surfaces. They last for years, and they're easily removable, hopefully with the new technology on that. But let's go through the thing, and what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about this a little bit. And in the county, we have 162 traffic light cabinet, 162 of them. This is provided by our Public Works Director, 84 in the county, 71 the DOT owns, 6 in the city of River Beach, and 1 in the city of Sebastian city limits. And this project was brought to me, I had thought about it, always seen it, because I go down to Stewart a lot to my sister's house, and you go down the Crosstown Expressway in Port St. Lucie, you see they're all already wrapped with their stuff, and it's really pretty cool in how they do it. I had thought about it, then literally, lo and behold, out of the clear blue, Justin McClure from Vero Beach Custom Signs, located down on Old Dixie around First Street in that area, that commercial area down there, called me one day and he said, "Hey, Commissioner, I got an idea. What do you think of this? I want to send you a proposal." I said, "You know, it's funny. I was thinking about that not long ago." I said, "Send it to me." So Justin McClure sent me this proposal, which I'll talk about it here a little bit further. He said, you know, we could do it for little cost on this as we can. I think it'd be something really good to do, and would the county be interested in it? And his estimate cost was like $495 per traffic signal box to do it. And you know, I said, well, let me run this by the county administrator. And you know, we've got a lot more important things to talk about than this, but I figured, what the heck, let's give it a shot. So Jason and I talked about it, and talking about it with a few other people, we thought it might be a good idea to see what we could do for this. And we didn't want the county to spend the whole bill, almost $80,000 to do this for 162 boxes. And so we thought, you know, what can we do? Can we get maybe a sponsorship of it? Can we get like local businesses or local families? Like for instance, if we went to the Peter D. O'Brien Foundation, and the Peter D. O'Brien Foundation said, "Sure, I'd like to sponsor a box and give you a check." And what are you doing for me? Well, we don't want this to turn into a commercial event or anything like that. We don't want to put logos on the boxes or anything like that. So if somebody did want to sponsor a box, it would be, the idea is maybe like a 1-inch strip at the bottom of the box that says the Peter D. O'Brien Foundation on the box. And also we would advertise it on our website. We would take a picture of all of them, had it there, and you know, those people would be listed as a sponsor. So this is not intended to be an advertising gimmick or anything. It's intended to beautify the area of the county with regards to this. So I reached out to the chamber, and they just weren't able to do it. So the next group I thought of was Senior Resource and Karen Deagle and her staff. And I met with Karen, and I met with her chief assistant, who happens to be related to me. He's sitting over there in the audience. It'd be my son, Ben. And we talked about this, and they had some good questions about this. First of all, how would you sell it? Can it be done? What can we do? Does it meet all the criteria? Is there any zoning issues, any things like that? And I think we answered all those questions. And then we met with Rich and Phil and Jason and Sue and Karen and Ben and myself when we met, and we went through a lot of that stuff. So what we came up with was that we all thought it would be a good idea, and we would need specific permissions to do city boxes and FDOT boxes, and so we said, let's spend $5,000 and do 10 boxes in the unincorporated area of the county. Let's pick out some good locations. Let's build some interest, see what people think, and if there's interest built, then SRA may consider taking this over and give sponsorships. As you can see right there on the screen, if they did so, the price would obviously go up because there's a cost for Karen and her staff to be in charge of this kind of thing. So let's go to the next slide. And we thought about it, we would form a committee made up of a representative, one from SRA, one from Public Works, and Rich has already thought that somebody like Alexis Peralta would be really good at this, and then one person from Community Development appointed by Phil, who he would want to do, and they would make recommendations as to which wrap and artwork would be used, and they would forward it to their respective supervisors for approval, and then they could go from there. And the traffic committee would also subsequently meet to create pre-approved album of 162 images or whatever we want to do, whatever they want to do to give somebody that's a sponsor. So a sponsor's not saying, well, I want to put a this or that. No, here's what you pick from, and this is what this is what you can pick, and we'll make it stays consistent with that area or that neighborhood. The luxury of this is that you can tailor this to a specific neighborhood, and I'll show you a couple of examples of that in a minute. But these scenes would only be picturesque. They would be stuff like history, plants, animals native to Florida, public service themes, sunsets, really nice pictures and things like that, like some of you have probably seen before. So let's go to the next slide. This shows, it's hard to see, and we can get you a better copy of this, but this is some of the traffic signal ownership locations where they're at. It's color coded. It's kind of hard to see on this particular slide, but you can go to the next slide. Same here. Again, it's color coded to who owns it. We own the majority of them along with the DOT. Like I said, there's 6 in the city of Vero Beach and 1 in the city of Sebastian. So we have plenty to choose from.
Are there any in the city of Fellsmere? No? My opportunity for airboats are gone.
So looking at this, there's your typical traffic signal box. Some of them are a little bit different, and Rich has made that clear that some of them are a little bit different, but he gave the committee the dimensions and all that sort of stuff that would be pretty cool to go through this and wrap these boxes of different sizes, and maybe there might be an accessory box next to it. And even they're working, Rich, correct me if I'm wrong, they're even working towards in the future to have battery backups on all these stuff in case we have a hurricane or something. But it's all right next to that box, and it all could be wrapped accordingly. So go to the next slide. These are some examples. Now, these are ones that are actually took down. These are down in Port St. Lucie right now. You can see, and this is the focus that we're looking for. This is the idea that we're talking about. You know, we're not talking about, we've got some other things we can show you, we'll show you, but this, you get the idea. That's traffic signal box, got a nice picture of an egret, and got a nice picture of the beach at sunset. Next one. Artwork. Yeah, I'm not real crazy about this, but if there is a particular artwork that would work, maybe in a specific neighborhood or area to keep with the theme of that neighborhood, like around, I don't think I have any slides of this, but around a school, you could actually put some sort of school scene or something like that. You could put a sports scene near, say, Jackie Robinson training, maybe put a historic Brooklyn Dodgers photo, something like that. Around the golf course, you could put a golf thing, but it still has to fit this criteria that's non-controversial and adds to the beautification of the area or the neighborhood. Go ahead. So you could even do like that. You can have a fishing scene. You can, anywhere you want. And there's other stuff you can do. You could have different things. Next slide. You can even have social influencers.
I veto that one. No way.
I don't know if that's Insta-worthy.
All right, that's
Would that be a good slide?
That's 4 votes no.
Well, you can do
Might
it to
cause
milk
too many
containers.
accidents at the intersections.
All right, go to the next slide. This is if you kick this video, it's really short. It's what Port St. Lucie talking about it real quick, if you can cue it up.
First, there's an idea, and you do something about it for the first time. Then, before you know it, you make your first sale. Small business first never stop coming. And you have a partner that always puts you first. GoDaddy, tools and support for every small...
Port St. Lucie. I'm Michelle Berger, your city councilwoman. I'm out here on the corner of Barroso and Port St. Lucie Boulevard today because we're showcasing our newest art in public places. Really simple way to get it out here, and I'm so excited about it. Very inexpensive, but look how awesome it looks. It's our Guy Harvey commission painting, and it's out here for everybody to enjoy. It's something that the council has as part of their vision for the next 10 to 15 years to really enhance every spot that is available to the public in any way with art. This is a really simple way to get it done, very inexpensive and very, very pleasing.
As part of the city's desire to bring art to public places, the City Council authorized staff to move forward with the utility box beautification project. This project is one of many projects assigned to the Neighborhood Services Division. However, it's a collaborative effort of many departments coming together, including planning and zoning, public works, and communications. All of our neighborhood planning projects are funded by the efforts of our citizens contributing to our recycling program. The city has also partnered with St. Lucie County Schools to incorporate some of the art from their students and teachers to feature on some of the blocks around the city.
The artwork on the boxes is installed by a vinyl wrapping process as opposed to actually painting on the boxes. This is something that other cities have done, as close as Martin County and even Fort Pierce. We expect to be able to wrap up to 50 out of a total of a little over 100 boxes this year. As part of our planning with the schools, we came up with the idea to wrap a traffic cabinet outside of Civic Center with a patriotic-themed 9/11 memorial type of design. So the students for the schools had a competition where the different schools came up with artwork and then hand-painted a traffic cabinet which will be on display at the Civic Center for the 9/11 event. The next phase of the project, which is currently not yet funded, we hope to use artwork from local artists to install on the wraps.
Go to the next one. And this just gets to be slides. This is done in Clearwater and others. You can just keep clicking through them. For instance, there would be a thing maybe near a golf course or stoplight near a golf course, something like that, that might fit in, something like that. This is, again, is just different artwork that we've seen. These are some of the local stuff that could be vetted by the member committee, the 3-member committee, then they could go from there and just keep clicking through them. Some of these are going to appear on our website. I mean, if we did, that's a city, go back one. No, go to the next one. This is 14th Avenue, downtown Vero Beach in the probably 40s or early 50s. You could actually put that in a, maybe right there in 14th Avenue at the stoplight. You could put something like that on there. That would have to be in talks with the city. The city would have to approve it and all that sort of stuff, or they may want to do it themselves. I mean, I'm not saying we're going to do that. That would be up to them, but go ahead. So, like I was saying, something like that, it Dodge, in the area of Jackie Robinson or something like that. People don't even know what that is anymore. Keep going. So I think that's it. So I'm open for questions. It's not very complicated. It's just something to try to add some snap and pizzazz and to beautify the county a little bit more.
Commissioner Adams.
I have a couple.
We'll see. I don't know if anybody wants to comment or.
Yeah, Commissioner Adams, let's go.
I have a couple questions. I know that the quote that was attached was from a specific company, but we would probably have to go through some type of procurement process.
We've already discussed that, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, these we would have to get quotes to do this. We would include this Vero Beach Custom Signs, of course, as one of the vendors that we reach out to, but it would be a competitively procured process to get the best price in accordance with our purchasing standards.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my only comment is, and you kind of mentioned it, we're going through the process right now of redoing our website and kind of creating a marketing brand or branding image, for lack of a better, I always revert to marketing for the restaurant, but it's the same concept, branding. We're branding the county as how we want to be presented or viewed. Who are we? What are we? So I think this should kind of be done in conjunction with that. So we are creating that community brand, and there's a clear message of how we're presenting ourselves, and what what it means to be Indian River County.
I agree.
I think like sunsets and nature things, yeah, those are awesome. But there's probably a better way to kind of package that in an Indian River County way. So it's more deliberate, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
All the pictures and images being Indian River County images, not just a sunset that somebody took in San Francisco over the bay, you know, that is pretty. I mean, that nobody can tell. I want to see it, that
Yeah.
we use Indian River County
And-
stuff.
And I think Kathy Copeland has been kind of working with Dan on some of that website stuff, and also with kind of branding us through social media and those types of things. So she might be a good person to have on whatever vetting committee it is, so there's continuity over the messaging. Because if your radio advertising and your print advertising and your social media accounts don't mesh, it's hard to convey to the public who your organization is as a brand, kind of thing. So
I can understand completely.
those would be my only comments.
Okay, anyone else? Commissioner Moss?
I like the idea. Thank you for bringing it forward. I've seen it in other places. And that was a very good point that Commissioner Adams made. I would definitely look to tailor it to us, and depending upon how local, if you will, you want to get. Remember, Carol Jean Jordan has that tag art that she puts on the faux license plates. And, you know, that's done by, I think, pretty much by each school. It's competitive. But if there is, for example, one near a school, then maybe, you know, tie it in with tag art. I would just look to make it as local as we can. I like the idea. Thank you.
Commissioner Fleischer?
I'm on the TAGOD board, and that's a separate 501c3. I don't know if that would qualify. I do like the idea of the theming. In other words, if it's beachside, perhaps maybe who we are, the turtles, who we are in South County and North County, and make it driven by what Indian River is about, as opposed to the atypical sunsets, like you said. And not necessarily just a California sunset. I meant I would even include not even just our sunset, because it's not, again, maybe something more identifiable that promotes who we are, tourism, what the attraction is in the area, maybe identification, examples are wide and varied, but I don't know if I would want to go into different promotional consideration for 501c3s or any of that. I think it's Indian River County.
Okay.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's why the tentative the talk was, we'll have those three folks on the committee, but the county administrator or whoever he designates can be added to that, and they can vet it and let them vet it, let them come up with that, and we've given them direction to say, you know, we want it to be us and promote us and, you know, be all about us.
Well, Commissioner Ehrman, then your item would be just to give approval to move forward with the initial 10 wraps and then work the program from there?
Yep, see where it goes from there.
We'd be happy to second that. Again, we'll know where we're going with the wraps, though, before it's actually deployed.
And that's a great point. And what I think we could do, hearing Commissioner Adams' point about making sure we're consistent with the brand, this might be something for staff to select some various different artwork and then bring it before the board and say, is this what you're thinking about? And then, but before Dylan interrupts me, I think we want to be careful with it being a committee. And it's, you know, like if there's, you know, if you just assign it to staff to bring something back, then we can stay at a sunshine jail from Dylan, and we could just bring something back. And I think, you know, hopefully, I think we've got the flavor of what we're saying. You know, in my mind, you know, this isn't, oh, find a picture of a blue heron, you know, in a wetland somewhere and bring it back. You know, not to say that that wouldn't be part of the thing, but that we try to kind of make sure that it captures the local flavor, you know, very, you know, like in, you know, and some of it could be the historic stuff, you know, like Jackie Robinson stuff, or historic, you know, picture, like the downtown historic picture of Vero, things like that. But make sure that it's consistent with like the website stuff. We're going through artwork and all that stuff on the website, and making sure that we capture all of the different flavors. And then we put, you know, what we might put on a traffic signal, you know, around Fellsmere might be different than one that we would on the beach side, versus one in South County versus one in North County. And, you know, we could, you know, instead of a picture of a pelican, we can do picture of Pelican Island National Wildlife Refuge, that type of thing. And we could bring that stuff back to the board, and the board could say, yeah, this is what we're after, and these are the types of things we'd like to see. What do you think about that? Okay.
Okay. You good with that?
Good with that.
You good with the second? Okay. We have a motion by Vice Chair Ehrman, second by Commissioner Flesher. Anyone from the public wish to comment? Phil, are you leaning forward to speak, or?
Don't be shy, Phil.
You're half out of your chair. I don't know.
Well, since you invited me up here. Phil Mattson, Community Development Director. Just want to caution you, this is classic, don't let the good be the enemy of the perfect. I've seen 3 of these fail in my 40 years of doing this. One was the 17th Street Causeway in Fort Lauderdale. Other ones, just because they couldn't come to a consensus on the perfect art form. So to some extent, staff will need a little bit of latitude in being, you know, responsible people who can pick a thematic image for the county that's consistent with the county's branding efforts, but might not be everybody's perfect choice, especially on the first 10. And we're taking, I think we're crafting this pretty carefully. We're starting small. We're staying away from communities that might have their own branding efforts, cities, that kind of thing. We're taking high visibility locations, put them out on 82nd Avenue. And there's always Plan B. That's let me pick the art, and I like dogs playing poker, but that's, no.
As long as they're all airboats, I could support whatever you want to do, Phil.
Or disc golf frisbees.
Yeah, my initial my initial thought is not to let this get bogged down by a lot of by us or other people.
Political.
Let's let the committee roll with it, and they can certainly say, hey, these are the first 10 that we picked, you know, or some maybe do that. But I don't want to. You get ruled by too many people, then nobody will ever agree. Well,
I think we're all on the same page. I think staff's on the same page, so I really don't have any concerns. We're probably overthinking this, but you know, we have plenty of art in public spaces and all that kind of stuff. And between everything that's already going on with the website, I'm sure there's a abundance of pictures and artwork available. So.
Okay.
And we are eliminating the one that had Rich. That won't be under consideration.
That one at the one out.
I mean, I don't want us to be involved with this, but I think we should.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
Item.
All those in favor of the motion signify with aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That carries 5-0. Putting on our solid waste disposal district hat, we've got
Mr.
a
Chair.
bunch of minutes.
Yes, I'd like to move item 15B1 through B5 for approval.
Very good. We have a motion by Commissioner Adams, second by Vice Chair Ehrman, to approve all the solid waste district minutes. All in favor signify with aye. Aye. Any opposed? Carries 5-0. And our last item is work order number 17 to Geosyntec for segment 3, cell 1, top of waste grades evaluation.
Mr. Chair, move approval.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Flesher, second by Commissioner Adams. All in favor signify with aye. Any opposed? That carries 5-0. And if there's nothing left for the good of the community, once again, a reminder, this coming weekend is the Sebastian Clam Bake. Is that correct?
Yes.
4th, 5th, and 6th. And everyone have a great weekend, and we will be adjourned.